Good morning, everybody. Well, morning here anyway. The reason I'm about a minute late getting started, I had to take tea bag out of my tea, so forgive me for that. I was a little behind on brewing tea this morning. So good morning. Tea, Earl Grey, hot. All right. So how is everybody? It's been, well, I guess it's been a day, right? Outside the weekly look ahead, it feels like I'm kind of out of sorts a little bit with just live streaming a little bit. We'll fix that. Don't worry. I'm sure it's like riding a bike. So this helps ease back into it actually before tomorrow's Bora Bora stream. So that should definitely help. Yeah. So how is everybody this morning? It's a Thursday, 10 o'clock here. So I imagine, you know, if you're in the US, I imagine you're at work. Minute late. I know. I'm horrible. All right. Let me catch back up here. Let's see. Let's stare at the screen with headphones and pretend it's work time. There you go, Phil. I like that. And John, I dig where your head's at. He says, I use Arrow Peak on Windows to keep the screen small, thus can still look like I'm working quite easily. I like where your head's at. I dig that. Any details on a new reprint of Big City? Yeah, kind of. Actually, if you wait, I forget, is it tonight, y'all? That the interview with Kevin Nesbitt from Mercury Games, is that when the interview is going to drop? Is it tonight? I know it's in the next 3 days. I can't remember if it's tonight, though. But anyway, he and I talk a little bit about Big City. So normally I would be happy to answer the question, but seeing as that's going to be tonight or tomorrow, I think you can wait to listen to the podcast or watch it on YouTube. The podcast drops tonight. The interview will be on there. The YouTube, the interview, you know, with moving pictures and stuff, that'll be either tonight or tomorrow. I can't remember which that is. So yeah, that's I'd say wait till then for that one. Todd says, nice to see you back. It's nice to be back. It's nice to be back into the swing of things, honestly. Being on the road's a lot, you know, it's a lot of fun going to conventions, especially, you know, one like Gamma, to where, you know, an industry one, which was a new experience for me. I like experiencing new things. So that was a lot of fun. That said, there's something to be said about being home and being in a routine. And I have a obnoxious amount of emails to address, and I have a to-do list about yay long today and tomorrow. So if I cut this short, and by short I mean no more than 2 hours, then yeah. So oh wait, I forgot I got to bring chat up. Look at me, I'm rusty. Jeez. Hey, there you go. How about that? Huh? Thanks, Amanda. All right. Let's see. Yeah, and also Todd had mentioned that he misses having new live streams. They're coming, Todd. The only reason we're redoing Bora Bora this week is because of audio issues on the recording that we had. That's all right. Audio issues with Bora Bora, so we're going to restream it because we want to be able to have it in the catalog for people to reference, both the teaching and the live stream. So that's going to be tomorrow night. After that, we'll be back on new stuff. And by new stuff, I mean not necessarily new games, just new content. So look for that. Tonight's episode is going to be pretty extensive. It's a recap of Gamma and MeepleCon, but it also has 7 interviews in it. Now, they're small. They're con interviews, so they're anywhere between, I don't know, like 7 to 18 minutes each of them. So it's going to be a pretty extensive episode for the podcast, but all those interviews are also Well, not all of them, 5 of them. The ones from Gamma are also going to be on YouTube. But if you guys watch the weekly look ahead, you guys already know that. So yeah, new content's coming, I promise. Eric asks, will you be attending Origins? And the answer is yes. Origins is actually going to be at the end of a pretty long stretch of being away from home. Maybe actually one of our good friends, Brad, might have figured out a way to get me home for a day, maybe 2 in between, because we have HeavyCon. After HeavyCon, a day and a half later, I leave for the UK Games Expo, where I'm going to sit and interview Francis Tresham, that's going to be one of like the pinnacles of running the show thus far. And let's see. So after the UK Games Expo, which also I'm going to be hosting or co-hosting a podcast, a live recording of a podcast over on Gaming Rules with Paul Grogan, as well as Tom for Slicker Drips and the Creaking Shelves show. So we're going to be hosting that on Friday night at the UK Games Expo. So HeavyCon, UK Games Expo, straight from the UK. Be flying to Copenhagen and then renting a car, which terrifies me. Let me tell you, the idea of renting a car overseas, even if they do drive on the right side of the road, still makes me nervous. And we're going to go to Sweden to visit Space Monkey and the fellow Swedes that are in the herd, because Space Monkey won our giveaway or our drawing for Heavy Cardboard Game Day Around the World. And we tried to time it to where we could make it a trip with other stuff, and that's exactly what we're doing. So we're going to spend a week in Sweden. That'll not be terrible. And then from Sweden, I'm either going to be flying straight to Columbus for Origins, or I'll be flying home for a day, maybe 2, getting a night's sleep, and then heading to Origins from there. So, but long story long, yes, I'm going to Origins. Unfortunately, Amanda will not be coming, but hopefully in the future, she'll be full-time at that point, hopefully, that she'll be able to. So there's that. Randall says spring break starts tomorrow afternoon. Woo! Like, that used to matter, like, to me, but obviously for anybody that's into the education here in the States, the education line of work, I guess, career, that spring break's probably a really big deal. So cool. Glad to see. Nick says, I'm going to put you on the spot. What do you think about Capstone's choice to go with Kickstarter, and how do you feel about the Kickstarter exclusives that change gameplay? So I'll answer those one at a time. What do I feel about Capstone's choice to go with Kickstarter? I think it's a smart choice, and I'm not saying this because Clay's a friend. I'm saying this because I think it's foolish to risk your business, put all your chips into one basket. Just like he said in the interview, if it flops, Capstone's in a world of hurt, and that kind of makes a lot of sense. That if you want to go full on with a production, I mean, look at what your game's going to be doing with Brazil. Same idea. If it's something that is going to overextend your business, then absolutely Kickstarter makes the right business sense, and I don't see a problem with that whatsoever. And like Clay said, it's not like it's going to be a long-term business model change for Capstone. It's strictly a, you know what, we can't afford to do this and take that risk otherwise. So I'm 100% on board with that. Parched. As far as Kickstarter exclusives, I don't know what they are yet, so I can't speak to them. As far as game-changing play, like, I'm not really a fan of that. But I will withhold judgment until I see what it is that is going to be the Kickstarter exclusive that changes the gameplay. I mean, if it's trivial, whatever. If it's a big deal, then yeah, I'll probably not be a fan of that. But I don't know what it is yet, and so therefore I can't really speak to it. Is that fair? So I'm taking a wait-and-see approach as far as that part of it goes. But as far as Kickstarter in general, them using it, I'm totally support the idea. Then I would much rather not I would much rather see Capstone not overextend themselves and take an unnecessary risk and end up, if they were to go out of business, it hurts all of us as gamers. No, none of us want to see that. So I completely support that. As far as the Kickstarter exclusives, on the surface, I'm not really a super big fan of that, but I will withhold final judgment until I see what it is. I think that's reasonable. And that's not putting me on the spot. Anybody who's into business here knows I'm going to call a spade, whether you're a friend or otherwise. I'm gonna be honest with y'all because my loyalties lie to y'all first and foremost. Yeah, that's just the way it is. About that Solo 18XX mentioned yesterday, I don't see a Solo 18XX in the future. I'll be honest. Solo war games, yes. Solo Euros, yes. Solo 18XX. I'll put the caveat that I've heard that Mike Hutton is making a solo variant or module for 1862. If that were to come to pass, and you know, here it is 2019, and that happens, and it's decent, then absolutely I would be willing to do that. How's that? That fair? Is that cool, Craft Dragon? Taipei in the house. What's up? Any word on City of the Big Shoulders? No, and that is maddening and such a bummer right now, because I would put that up there with Mr. President and Brazil as some, and Pipeline. I think those four are my four most anticipated games that are coming, say, in the next 18 months, hopefully. So no new news on the City of the Big Shoulders. I know the game is close to being done. It's just I don't know the status of where it is. Normally, we're not really keen on live streaming prototypes. I would make an exception for some of those that I mentioned. In fact, I'm going to make an exception for some of those because those are games that either I've already experienced and am a really big fan of, i.e. City of the Big Shoulders, or I'm just really excited about those games. So if and when we do get a prototype, a highly polished prototype, if it looks close to what it did at Gen Con last year, then yeah, you guys will be seeing it as well. But as far as updates, I haven't heard anything, to be honest. Have you ever played any solo games, any that you enjoyed quite a bit? The Hunters from GMT is the one that I have experienced so far, and I'm looking forward to getting more into them. I know Nemo's War, I mean, let's face it, it looks gorgeous, doesn't it? I'm excited to dig into that, and I have far more solo games that aren't played that on my shelf of I haven't experienced yet that I want to. So this is definitely coming, especially, you know, now that I have the time to do so during the day, that we're going to experience those together. So I'm looking forward to that. Now that I've played the Gallerist, Scott asks, where does it rank among Lacerda games? I liked it a lot more than I thought I would, to be honest with you. Having a full game under my belt now, I would say it's still too early to really rank it, because one play, I mean, just like reviews, I'm not willing to review a game after just one play, because I feel like I fumbled around a lot in the game, and I don't have enough of a basis on which to judge. But I will say early impressions were really good. I have heard a lot of people say previously, before I fully played the Gallerist, that a lot of people tend to either like one or the other, whether it's the Gallerist or Lisboa. That's not going to be the case with me. I found that I definitely enjoy all of Vital's games so far that I've played, the exception being CO2. However, I haven't played CO2 in, I don't know, 4+ years. Vital was kind enough to give us his prototype while we were over at LyriaCon, which we haven't gotten to the second chance version, the second edition of it. So when we do, we'll be able to give feedback on that as well. And the Gallerist we're going to definitely be reviewing on the show. So I think when we actually review the gallerist, I'll be able to, rank it as far as where in my hierarchy I would have it. But yeah, early good returns on that. Anne asks, how do you pick the games that you play and review? That's actually a really good question, and I was asked that a couple of times at Gamma from various industry folk, and it's a mix of things, honestly. So first off, we try to do a monthly patron choice for playthrough, to where we select X amount of games and the patrons choose one, and we play that in a month. Now, sometimes that slides a couple weeks, but soon thereafter. So there's one of them. Then it's a matter of, what do we want to stream? What do we think would be enjoyable, both for us to play as well as for y'all to see? If we have any sponsored playthroughs, obviously those are going to fit into the schedule. And then it's just a matter of, on our request geek lists, kind of a hierarchy of things. Now, that's not a hard, fast rule. Oh, it's the #1 game, we're immediately going to live stream it. But if you actually go through the list, we've actually covered a whole bunch of those already. So we kind of use that as a gauge, followed closely by what do we want to play. And more importantly, I would say the driving factor is, what do we have enough plays in? And especially if I'm teaching it, what do I have enough plays in to where I'm comfortable to do a competent, thorough teach of the game? So that said, it's kind of a mix of all those things, honestly. Yeah. So the request geek list, what are we comfortable with? What do we want to play? What do the patrons want to see? And yeah, that's kind of the mix of things. And obviously sponsor playthroughs fit in there as well, which there aren't a ton of those. I imagine there will be an increasing amount, but not a uncomfortable level that's going to increase to, 1 or 2 a month, maybe at most, probably. But even so, I think we've done, 7 sponsor playthroughs over the course of the first year of the show. So it's not like there's a lot of these anyway. So yeah, just kind of a mix of all those things. Cormac competing with Hardcore History for length with this one. We will be with the episode. It's not going to be a 5-hour episode like Dan does with his show, which, God bless him, I love his stuff. And that is a must listen. If you have not listened to Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, definitely recommend it. Even if you take it as an entertainment podcast and not as strictly gossipal, because I know there are some historians that have issue with some of the stuff he says. I listen to it because it gets me interested in various parts of history. For instance, I had zero interest in World War I. Like, that was a time period that I just could not care less about. I listened to a series on World War I, and for the longest time, and ever since, I'm fascinated by that time period because that got me interested, whether it's reading books, whether it's playing World War I war games, whether it's watching movies, whether it's watching documentaries, whatever. It got me really fascinated on that. Same with Mongol history and Genghis Khan. And so and that's kind of that parallels a little bit with why I enjoy historical war games, because I feel like those help get me interested in the history of, history as well, and or even some Euros. I mean, whether it's an infamous traffic with the opium trade, whether it's Lisboa and the history of the city, stuff like that. I dig that stuff, and I have a curious mind, so I enjoy learning about stuff that I don't know about. Another one would be Mike Duncan's Revolutions podcast. His podcast, The History of Rome, is still my all-time favorite podcast. It's the very first podcast I ever listened to. I think it's 184, 187 episodes, and they're real short. They're 10, 15-minute episodes, but got me hooked. And without Mike Duncan and The History of Rome, we're not here. I'm not doing this. So big thanks to Mike for that. Am I attending Age of Steam Con? Unfortunately, Jeff, I am not. The reason for it, actually, Chad Deshawn, who owns BoardGameTables.com, and sponsor of the show, as well as a friend of mine, he reached out to me before when he was thinking about putting it together, and he said, March or April. And I said, April, please, because I have stuff going on in March. And he decided to go with March. I just can't fit it in, unfortunately. So yeah. So I know a lot of people going to HeavyCon are going to that. So you guys have fun. Take lots of pictures, bring back stories. I'm looking forward to hearing about it. But no, this year I am not going to be able to fit it into the schedule, unfortunately. Scott asks, any chance of streaming another Sherlock Holmes? That's an interesting question because we don't want to ruin the game too much because, I mean, these are one and dones, right? Because once you've seen the stream of it, kind of ruins the case for you. And we've now ruined 10% of the game from a standpoint of we've streamed one case number 6, was it? I think. So I think it would be a lot of fun. I think it would be cool and interactive, but I don't know if we should. Does that make sense? So what do you think about that? And going back to my rental car apprehension about driving a car overseas, Kyle says in the U.S. Virgin Islands, they drive American cars, i.e. the steering wheel's on the left side, but they drive on the left. Yeah, that'd mess you up. Whoo, yeah, that would. So I rented a car in Australia, and they drive on the wrong side of the road as well. And all I needed was a U.S. driver's license. That was not a fun experience, going the wrong way in a roundabout. Yeah, nah, Good thing I was in Rockhampton, and it's a small town, and it wasn't a lot of traffic. But yeah, that was quite the experience. So I'm not looking forward to that, but I will do some reading and watch some videos before heading there to try and not kill me or Amanda or anyone else that may be in a car. And if there's a local, I might just be like, here, you drive. Oh, hi, Lila. Welcome. All right. It says mostly a lurker. Happy to be here. Happy you're here as well. Cool. Good stuff. John asks, what's the heaviest theme or topic dealt with in a game that you've played that you did enjoy it as a game? Why or why not? Easily, I would have to say Colonialism, the game by Spielworks, and Scott Liebrandt, I think, is the designer. I like dark. I like unique. I like something off the beaten path when it comes to themes. You guys know me. A game could be completely void of theme, and if the mechanisms are good, I'll enjoy it. I'm totally okay with that. That said, a good or unique or something different, I guess that would be the definition of unique. Anyway, something different as far as theme goes will pique my interest. And Colonialism, I mean, dude, look at the box cover. Seriously, when we're done here, go Google Colonialism, BGG, and look at the box cover. And it has a ball and chain on it. I mean, it's very evocative. It's very dark. It's very gritty. And the premise of the game is you are an unnamed colonial power. All the different players are. And it uses kind of that, I guess, would it be 17th, 18th century cartoons or comics as artwork for the cards. It's a card playing game. But the premise of the game is really dark. And the game doesn't shy away from it. And essentially, the goal of the game is to get resources, but and it has that whole Reiner Knizia, whichever resource you have the least of at the end of the game, scores you. That's your score. But to be able to get the resources, you have to remove, I think is maybe a good PC way of saying, or you have to exterminate the native population, remove all the discs from that location, and then you can pillage the goods from the land. That's about as dark as it gets. And the fact that both Scott and Uli were willing to take that topic on and tackle it head on and treat it with respect and treat it from obviously everything in board gaming is abstracted, right? But treating it with a level of attention and respect, yet making it a solid game as well, I think there's something to be said for that. I really, really do. And Uli told me previously that he actually wanted to go a little bit heavier with the theme and the title of the game, but Scott wasn't really comfortable with it. That was kind of the limit on where they both agreed. They were both comfortable, and that's where they settled out. And it's a game that we really enjoyed. We've done a pod blast on it way back in the day, like early on in the show. And it's one we've never reviewed, and it's one that I absolutely want to review. I don't know if it ever gets a reprint because the theme is so dark and edgy. Yet, we have Endeavor that got a second edition. Granted, slavery does not play a big part in the game, but it is a means to an end in the game, and it's something that you can employ to get ahead. So the fact that that was done in a very abstracted, yet didn't brush it under the rug type thing, I think that shows that there's a willingness to tackle these topics, and that there's still an audience for games that are willing to tackle these topics head on and not brush them aside. So yeah, definitely enjoyed it. I own it. I won't be getting rid of it, and I would like to live stream it. I'd like to review it at some point as well. So yeah, have any of y'all experienced colonialism as far as the game? That was a weird way to put that. Let me try that again. Have any of y'all played it? Whew, moving on. Brad says, I just want to say thank you. Your 1846 playthrough, 18XX primers, and other 18XX videos you've posted have made it possible for me and 3 others in my group to get into 18XX titles. Mission accomplished, man. That's awesome to hear, Brad. I'm really, really glad to hear that. I know not everybody is on board with the way we go about presenting 18XX, but we go about it the way we enjoy the hobby, and it makes sense to us. So I'm really glad to hear that, and that's awesome to hear. Very cool. FKA Reaper says, new to the podcast, but what's your drink of choice? I know you do tea and wine. Anything stronger? I enjoy gin. My drink of choice, like outside of a good glass of red wine or tea, depending on the time of day, probably gin and cranberry, Tanqueray and cranberry with a little lime. It's kind of funny whenever we go out, Amanda order like a bourbon and Coke. I'll order a gin and cranberry. They give me the bourbon and Coke, give her the gin and cranberry because it's pink. It's cranberry juice. Hey, it's good with UTIs, right? I'm kidding. Well, I'm moving on. All right, cool, good. Hey, Nuno's here. Hi, Nuno. All right, yeah, Brazil. Get me the copy. Let's move on. Come on. Hey, Carmen's here too. Awesome, Carmen. Game Surplus. Definitely go support them. They support the show. There are discounts there for Game Surplus through Heavy Cardboard. So yeah, definitely go support them, y'all. Oh, Craft Dragon has a similar mug. Cheers. Speaking about Kickstarter, Alexander asks, have you the retail or Kickstarter versions of Lacerda, O'Toole / Eagle Griffin games? I have the Kickstarter versions of Vinos, of The Gallerist, and there's one other that I can't think of. Oh, and Lisboa. So yes, I have them all. The Kickstarter versions, big fans of them. For a guy who enjoys winsome games, right? The epitome of function over form. I also thoroughly enjoy the production level that Eagle Griffin and that whole trio, Eagle Griffin, Ian O'Toole, and Vital Lacerda, have been putting together, and I fully support it. I hope it continues. I think it's an awesome way to get gamers into heavier games, for the simple fact that, let's face it, if it's aesthetically pleasing, you got your foot in the door, right? You can always get people to get into winsomes after the fact, but you're probably not. There are exceptions, obviously, but you can it's harder to get people into Winsomes than it is to, say, the Gallerist or similar. So I think it's that, there's a reason minis sell on Kickstarter, right? There's a reason all the retailers at Gamma were like, I haven't seen it, but what do you call the little minions? They all look like minions in the movie when Games Workshop was up there and everything and showing upcoming minis. They were all like, so, minis sell. So aesthetics matter. So finding a happy balance between them gets people or get your foot in the door, brings them over to the heavier side, and then you can get them into Winsomes. Obviously, it doesn't work that way for everybody, but you get the idea. I think it's just a good thing all the way around. You know what I mean? All right. Hi, Amanda. Thanks for slaving away. Ooh. Oh, boy. Shocker, I'm behind. Shelf of Opportunity, Philip, the rabbi of the herd, mentions. Yes, I really dislike the term of Shelf of Shame. Why am I ashamed? I bought the damn games, or they're my games to review. Why would I be ashamed I haven't gotten to them? You know what that means? I just haven't gotten to them. Okay, why would I be ashamed of that? I'm a grown-ass man. I'm 42, right? Football reference for those that got it. Or hand egg for those overseas. Matt asks, since I've been heavy cardboard full time, how much solo gaming have I done? None. I have finally found a rhythm to the way things are going to work now that I'm full time, because I've only been full time officially since November 4th, I think it is. So it hasn't been that long. Plus, I had BGG-Con, and then I've had 3 conventions so far this year. But I think I'm finally settling into a rhythm to things. That, coupled with the amazing survey responses that we've gotten from our 660 patrons, that has helped kind of shape how we can not overextend Amanda right now, because let's face it, when it comes to the podcast, Amanda is 100% invaluable in a sense that she edits the show and she is my co-host, right? So she needs time to prep. She needs to do all these things. When it comes to the playthroughs, not so much, to where you guys have seen, I don't need Amanda on the playthroughs each and every time. And so we're able to give her some time off with that because, as y'all know, she works her day job. So we are going to scale back ever so slightly to a sustainable level for the show, something we can do that doesn't burn her out, which is super important, both as her co-host and her husband. But yeah, that's going to be a thing going forward. And now that I have a routine, and now that we understand what our schedule is going to be on a quote-unquote normal week, solo gaming is going to happen more, which the solo gaming is going to be more about doing it for the show and preparing for the show, but it's still something I think I'm going to enjoy. So I'm looking forward to that. Asher will hang out with me, and he and I will do some solo gaming. Have I tried Silent Victory? Kabuki Kid asks. The sequel to The Hunters. You play it as a US sub. Have it downstairs. Haven't got it. As Philip says, it's on my shelf of opportunity. There's definitely that's going to be one that's going to see some table time on a stream as well in the upcoming months. All right. Barack says, hi all, long-time lurker, non-live stream watcher. Nice to catch you all after a long day. Awesome. Welcome aboard. Glad you're here live, Barack. Very cool. Philip asks, what microphone is it that I'm using? I need to upgrade mine. This beautiful piece of hardware here is the Electro Voice RE20. This is kind of the go-to, the industry standard when it comes to professional podcasting. If you look at ESPN Radio, NPR, stuff like that, they all use the Electro Voice RE20. It's funny. When we wanted to upgrade from our Blue Yetis, I thought that we had to go to I always get them backwards. One's a condenser and one's a dynamic microphone. And we tried some really high-end mics and we tested them out in a studio environment and they sounded amazing. We got them home, sounded horrible. And found out that because we're not in a studio environment, you know, the whole padded walls, the whole thing here, plus we're not singing, it's strictly spoken voice, we don't really need those. And I did some more research, found out these beauties, and we now have 3 of them for whenever we have a third chair for the show. And it's been an awesome investment for the show and made possible by these 660 patrons out there, because there's no way we could afford all these, well, all of this without them. So invaluable to us. So thank you to all y'all. And there you go. Oh, hey, we have more Portuguese here. Cidade? I don't know. Is it Cidade? Cidade. I don't know. Can you do a playthrough of Role Player and Monsters and Minions? I won't say no that we won't, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. Now, as you guys know, we did Rising Sun just ahead of its release, and it's our most watched video. There's something to be said for that, right? But also, we also want to stay true to and play the games that we enjoy. So we think that we're going to about 5% of the playthroughs. We're going to try and step outside of our normal wheelhouse and present something from the heavy gamer's perspective and do a playthrough of it. So that's why I'm not instantly shooting those down, but they might be a part of that 5% that we're willing to take a look at as far as stepping out of our niche, if you will, of medium and heavy strategy board games and into the more Ameritrash side of things. So I won't say no. So we'll see. Yoda, take care. Ooh, good question, Carmen. And this is actually really topical. So Carmen asks, how would you rank the cons in order of importance for heavy cardboard, the business side? And he goes and lists a bunch, and I'll get to those in a minute. And the reason I say this is topical is because Gamma we were there strictly for the business side of heavy cardboard, right? We were there to cover it and to bring it home to y'all, right? And that's kind of what a couple of the daily diaries were about, as well as all these interviews that I did while I was there, as well as the recap episode that's going to be coming tonight. On top of that, though, and the main driving force of it is to further the business that is heavy cardboard and running this show, right? And building the show. So that absolutely was a instrumental thing. So he lists how would I rank the cons in order of importance for heavy cardboard, the business side. He says Gamma, Spiel, Origins, Gen Con, Heavy Con, BGG Con, PAX Unplugged this year. Man, that's really hard. For the business side of things, I would have to say it's either going to be Gamma or Spiel. For this year, I would argue that Gamma is going to be the most significant, most important convention, trade show, whatever, that I will have attended this year as far as the business side of things. However, I think last year and the year before that I would skew more towards Spiel. Granted, I didn't go to Gamma for those, but I also think that those were instrumental because Spiel, or Essen, as it's also known as, I feel like those were instrumental to getting us to this point, if that makes sense. So business side of things, Spiel and Gamma. BGG is definitely not on that list. That's one that I go as Edward, and we have a meetup, but it's just me and if Amanda makes it, just us just going to play games. HeavyCon, business side, I really don't. I mean, I guess there's some marketing aspect to it, like, oh, going to HeavyCon. Oh, what's HeavyCon? It's Heavy Cardboard's convention. I get that, but that's more of a, hey, let's put on a con so we can game kind of thing. So less so that. Gen Con, I was really surprised last year at how important that was from a business side of things. I did not expect that. And PAX Unplugged, I don't know. I'm going to be going this year, or at least that's the plan to go this year. So I don't know because I haven't experienced it. I didn't go last year because it was, as you know, BGGCon or PAX Unplugged since they were the same weekend. This year, with them being different weekends, should be able to hit both, hopefully. So, yeah. But Gamma and Spiel are definitely the two big ones, and I just don't see that changing. I think they were both instrumental at different times, and Spiel just because all the publishers that are overseas that don't come to Gamma, I go to Spiel and I can meet them there, along with obviously listeners, viewers, etc. But you're talking strictly the business side, so there's that. All right. Oh, wow. Jeremy nailed what the mic was. Very cool. Color me impressed. I'm curious, Jeremy, what do you do for a living? Yeah, he nailed it. He says the mic looks like an EV RE20. Good call. All right. Eric asked, did I ever play in the World Series of Poker, and how'd I do? I'm not a tournament. When I played poker for a living, I was not a tournament pro by any stretch. I don't like the idea of working for a few days and having nothing to show for it. Cash games were always and still continue to be my bread and butter. But yes, I did play. I didn't play in the main event. My best friend, Jody, I won't give his last name because he kind of likes the anonymity, but he finished 52nd a handful of years ago, which was the most awesome thing and the most disappointing thing that I think I've ever experienced in poker. And even though it wasn't me, because making that deep a run in a field of, 6,800 runners, to make it to 52nd, I mean, get 160 grand, that's awesome. But also that's kind of crushing. If you've played poker, you understand why making 160,000 is a huge disappointment. So yeah, as far as me, I played one 1,500 event, had an average stack in the big blind, folds around to the small blind. He jams with a slightly smaller stack. I look down at pocket aces. I insta call. He's got ace deuce suited. I have pocket aces. Flop game deuce deuce 5. Good game me. Yay, tournament poker. So yeah. And Barack, going back to the Sherlock Holmes idea of streaming another one, he brings up a good point. If you don't want it spoiled, don't watch it, right? So I won't say no, Barack, that we will never, and especially while Sweater Mike's in town, because he's only in town about half the year during ski season and stuff. I would like to. I think that would be fun, but only if there's demand for it. So I'll tell you what, go to the request geek list, put it on there, and mention that you would like a second stream, and if it gets enough votes, we'll make it happen. How's that? Morning, James. Anne brings up a good point as far as driving overseas. Try practicing driving in a parking lot a lot before hitting the road. Good call. I wouldn't have thought of that. You would think you would, because when you learn how to drive, right, as a kid. Good idea. I think I might do that. Oh, okay. Sorry. I read this question like 5 times, Kabuki Kid, and I just couldn't make sense of it. And he says, I'm sorry. You said, sorry. What about the way Heavy Cardboard presents 18xx games as opposed? We're not experts at the game, and those that enjoy the high-level play feel like we're not doing it justice. And I'm okay with that, because I'm just never, if you guys listen to the 18xx primer on the podcast, I'm 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I'm not going to call myself an omni gamer, because there are definitely certain games or types of games within a hobby that I have zero interest in. But I'm not all in on 18xx games. So I'm never going to be, an expert. I'm never going to be highly proficient at them. And some people just think that just shut up and get somebody who is and have them do it. I don't necessarily agree with that, because I see the impact that we're having, making them a little bit more approachable, making them, trying to tear down the barrier to entry that these have, and I think we're doing a pretty good job of that. So I'm pretty comfortable in my own skin as far as where we sit with that. So I'm learning to, but I'm human, right? So Kyle says, didn't know you like gin. Best I've ever had was a French bottle called, oops, lost my spot. There we go. A bottle called Gavine, named after the vine flower ingredient. Don't think they distribute to the U.S. anymore. Well, Kyle, if you go overseas to France, I'll expect a bottle so we can share and we can experience it together. I would like that. Thank you for the offer. And Rand says he owns Colonialism and has done a solo schizo to where, you play solo but play multiple players. Says it works. It can wrench the guts if thinking about the playing, but it makes sense. And that's exactly it, right? That's a good game, and an enjoyable game does not have to be a fun game, in my opinion. I just don't think, I think fun is a very, I don't want to say dangerous, but it's a word that, as you guys know, I avoid using if at all possible, because I enjoy 4X. Would that be a lot of people's idea of fun? Nope. 18xx games? Nope. Arkwright? Nope. So what's fun for me, and I get it, from my perspective, I'm having fun. Yes, I get that, but I try not to use that word nonetheless. So yeah, I think enjoyable and good game does not have to be fun. And it can be a game that I want to play because I enjoy it, but I don't necessarily have fun playing it. Does that make sense? It makes sense in my head, but I hope I'm conveying that clearly. I guess I'll find out in half an hour when I work my way through the chat, huh? Did I see anything about Coimbra? I did not, unfortunately. Portos? Does Amanda like scotch as well as bourbon? Reaper asks. Nope. We've both tried it, and a lot of people coming to HeavyCon really enjoy scotch. Ooh, it's, you know what? Drink what you dig, right? Just like play what you dig. But man, it is completely wasted on me. Like I've gotten to the point to where I simply refuse to take offered drinks because I know how expensive scotch is, and it's wasted on me. And I'm talking even not the peaty stuff. It's just, oh, yeah, no. I never drank as a kid though, because I grew up with a raging alcoholic as a father. So I never drank until I was in the Marine Corps. And I never drank wine until after I was out of the Marine Corps. I got a taste for it because I was waiting tables for a year after 9/11, after I got out of the Marine Corps, because nobody was hiring for aviation, obviously. And we had to be able to understand how to describe the wine to the customers when I was waiting tables. So I had to do wine tastings, and after a while, you just get a taste for it. I imagine it's very similar for scotch or beer, for that matter, which is something I also don't drink because I never drank it as a kid. I never drank it as a teen. But I'm pretty okay with just drinking wine and liquor, and some liquors at that. So yeah. Carmen asks, best player count for the estate / Neue Heimat, which, by the way, if you haven't heard the interview, I would suggest go watch the interview I did with Clay from Capstone, where he breaks down the estates, i.e. Neue Heimat 2.0. Best player count. I like it at 4, but I would have to play it again at a few of the various player counts to definitively say, yes, this is the best player count. But I feel comfortable saying I really like it at 4. I know that for a fact. That's not to say that I don't like it with others. Cool? Kabuki Kid says, I always thought the term shelf of shame was meant as a joke. And it very well might, but it's just the connotations. I just don't like it. So, you know what? Shelf of opportunity, or games I just haven't gotten to. I mean, let's face it. We all have disposable income when it comes to, I mean, we're in this hobby, so ergo, we all have some measure of disposable income. So, if you haven't gotten to it, it's your money. I'm okay with that. Shouldn't be ashamed of that. It just rubs me the wrong way. Whatever. Todd says, my wife is mad. I've had Star Trek Fleet Captains on my shelf for 3 years. I assume that means you haven't played it yet, Todd. It happens. But you know what? Why don't you make a March or a spring resolution? It just became spring, right? Why don't you make a spring resolution to get it off the shelf, read the rules, and check it out? Why not? John says, I used to think that Asher was your friend Ash. Thought that when you said Asher is asleep under the table meant Ash was in a homeless situation. That really made my day. Nope. Two different entities. One is 2-legged, one is 4-legged. Asher being our greyhound, our senior greyhound, who is 12 now. Amanda will come in and tell me if he's actually 13. I think he's 12. He's getting up there. Back hips are starting to get a little suspect, but hanging in there, doing pretty strong. He apparently, while I was gone, there was snow. It snowed at least once, and he was out in the backyard just running around like a puppy, which is awesome to see. But no, and Ash. No, Ash, 2 separate entities. That's awesome. All right. And yeah, there you go. And Jeff says, yep, he's in radio as well. And those mics, i.e. the RE20s, are the gold standard. I'll be honest, I hate the sound of my own voice. Most of us do, right? And so I would never listen to our episodes because, I refuse to edit because I refuse to listen to me over and over. I can't stand the sound in my own voice. However, since we've gotten these, it's tolerable. It's amazing what good equipment can do. But in the end, content trumps everything. The equipment comes secondary. Content has got to carry the day. And thank you guys for joining me and proving out that point. Because if you listen to our early shows, y'all know not good equipment at all. And all of this we've learned on the fly, right? So it's been an exciting adventure, and I'm excited to see what's around the next corner. Craft Dragon says, I keep on hearing it as Escher, so I expect their dog walks on the walls and the ceilings at times. I'm not going to say he doesn't. Martin says, hey, Ed. It's Edward, by the way. I watch Heavy Cardboard all the time. I have you to blame for all my new shiny 1846 box sitting alongside a new poker chip set. How far down this rabbit hole have you sent me? That's entirely up to you. I do fear that we lose some folks down that rabbit hole. But like Tony said, especially in the primer, he has gotten the needle out of his arm. You know, the proverbial 18XX needle. And now he's more of an omni game. It's not 18XX and only 18XX, which we lost him to for a fair while. and it's good to have him back. So it's possible that happens. It's possible you're like me, to where you enjoy him, but you also enjoy other games along the way, and it's possible you just go down the rabbit hole. So hopefully, for your sake, you find whatever works for you, Martin, and you know what? Play what you dig. Enjoy it. But I can't say I'm really sorry about opening that door for you and helping that, so I think that's awesome. Lila says, ooh, thought of a question. And by the way, oh, it's pronounced Leela. Okay, I will try and remember that, Leela. I apologize. Which VTOL Lacerda game is best at 2 players? I love the playthroughs, but not sure where to start. Huh. So let's see. Okay, discounting CO2 because I don't have enough experience with that. And I would argue that I can't really speak to the Gallerist on that notion either. So that leaves us Vinos, Lisboa, or Kanban, really. Vinos plays really well at 2, believe it or not. I think Kanban works really well at 2. Yeah, I could make a case for either of those, I think. I think either of those would be good avenues in which to explore if you are intimidated by Vinos. And this is one of the cool things about what they did with this, with the 2016 edition, is they have the, I don't want to say stripped down, but the more beginner friend, no. A good stepping stone version of the game with the double-sided board and the different rule set. But Kanban, once you get past the overwhelming first look of the board, I think Kanban's a really, really good game as well. So I think both of those would be good choices, honestly. Jesse asks, do you have any interest in delving deeper into the academic side of game design rather than the community aspect of heavy gaming? I am one of the very few, and Amanda also resides in this realm, that we have zero interest in game design. Let me rephrase that. We have zero interest in designing games. I think the idea and the concepts of game design are interesting, but I don't know if I really want to go that direction, at least not right now. That's not to say that I won't want to explore that down the road, but as it is right now, I think residing kind of where I am and kind of just living here for a little while is where I'm comfortable and where I want to be for a while, and then maybe periodically venture into that, not as far as designing games, but the more academic, cerebral idea of game design in general. I mean, that kind of goes back to the whole poker study stuff and game theory and stuff like that. It interests me, but I hadn't gotten to that point by the time I quit playing for a living, or I should say that the government made me quit playing for a living. And so, yeah, just not there yet, but maybe down the road. So, hey, Rob, how about I talk slower so I don't sound so chipmunk at double speed as you catch up? Hope it was a good night at work for you, Rob. Uneventful is always good. You could say the flop told you glory to Rome. Yeah, it was, not to go too deep into this, but the poker was both very good and very unfortunate, both in Reno and in Vegas. I didn't really talk about it at all on the show outside of what poker kind of led into on the trip. I got it in as a 70% favorite on the flop 3 different times for 800 to 1700. That range 3 times, and as a 70+% favorite, and lost each time. That's frustrating. I ain't gonna lie. That smarts a bit. Had that happen twice at the Peppermill and once at the Bellagio. I'm sorry, once at Aria. I got it in as a 77% favorite, and for just under 1,800 bucks and lost. That sucks. I mean, it's my poker bankroll, so it's separate money, but damn it, I just didn't want to be unlucky. Anyway, I played well, so there's that. I can take solace in that. I will say, I've talked about these guys recently on a couple of shows, Andrew Nemi and Brad Owen, and also one guy I haven't talked much about because he's in St. Louis and not in Vegas, but Jamin Burton. Those are three poker vloggers that I religiously watch and think cinematography, videography, whatever, and just design and just the way they make their videos. Even if you're not into poker, I think they're just really fun and enjoyable, interesting watches. Andrew Nemi, I think, is the best out there. So I met both Andrew and Brad at the Bellagio a couple times while I was there in Vegas for MeepleCon. And this is a credit to Nemi. He just released a vlog on that weekend, and he lost something like $7 grand, 7,700 over the weekend. Just got kicked in the teeth and just ran horrible. About kind of like I did, but he plays at a higher level. He plays 510, no limit. And when I met him, he was super gracious and super, you could tell he wasn't in the best headspace and was a little down in the dumps, but you know what? He was gracious. He was friendly. He was all those things that you would hope, when you meet somebody that you respect in a similar field, kind of. And he was. So big credit to him. I thought that was pretty awesome to see him just, you know what? It's just a bump in the road, and to be cool about it. So yeah, it was really cool meeting both those, and they're definitely a couple of dudes I would like to catch a drink with next time I'm in Vegas. I think they're the types of guys you just kind of want to hang out with and just, chew the fat and talk about whatever. It doesn't necessarily have to be about poker. So that was pretty cool. That was a fun experience for me. Let's see. Lost my spot again. Oh, there we go. All right. Martin says, just stepped out of my car listening to the Hardcore History podcast about World War I. There you go. Got me interested in otherwise unknown era. Has hardcore history changed how much you wargame at all? I don't think it's changed how often I'm able to play them, but it's definitely increased my appetite for learning about it and exploring more about the history of conflict in general, and gotten me more interested in time periods that I wouldn't normally be interested in. And thusly, I want to play them more. I want to play and explore these games and put myself in the shoes of where a lot of these people, these generals, whoever, were in, and try and see in a very abstracted way the kind of predicaments that they were in. And I think that gives a really good perspective and makes it easier to understand why some decisions were made when sitting here in the comfort of my own house. It's easy to play armchair quarterback on a bunch of this stuff. And some of them were just cowards. Some of them were just bad decisions, but at least it can help give context. So I think that's a really awesome aspect of this hobby. Again, whether it's war games or whether it's other things, whether it's business, logistics, whatever. I like Amanda and I have said, we've played a lot of logistics games, but the shipping aspect for the patron drive as well as the patron rewards has, especially on Amanda's end, it's been an overwhelming experience and something we have a new appreciation for. Let me tell you, especially for folks that run Kickstarters. Oh my. I understand why there are fulfillment companies like Game Surplus and stuff like that, because that stuff's nuts to try and do on top of everything else. Don't recommend it. Lessons were learned, for sure. Degaluz says, you don't drive in your everyday life? I do, but the difference is I'm used to the street signs around here. Like, I know what they represent. Like, when I was in Germany, in Essen, and we actually rode with Mira down from the Netherlands down to Essen. Street sign, or the highways, I don't know what they represent. I don't know what the symbols are. It's just a unfamiliarity, even though it's on the right side of the road. And so I would have to learn all of that. So that and it's just outside my comfort zone. I'm very proficient driver, I feel like. But that said, here in the States, see, and this warms the cockles of my heart. Meeple Overboard says, agreed in that y'all are making 18XX games seem more approachable. 2 years ago, never would have even thought of trying one. And you know what? Ultimately, try one. Still might not be for you. But at least you have an interest in them now, and you want to expand your horizons. And if they're not for you, that's okay. They don't have to be. I think that's, yeah, that really warms my heart to hear that, us, and by us, I mean the Heavy Cardboard Collective, whether it's us as hosts, whether it's, Tony and Ash and Sweater Mike and all this stuff as far as in the circle of, the production of the show, or whether it's just folks in the herd, whether it's in the Slack channel or just in the guild or on Twitter or any of those things. I think it's awesome that, as we mentioned in the primer, it definitely seems to be in the public consciousness more. It could be, selection bias, that's the universe in which we inhabit, the world in which we are involved in, and the circle in which we run in, so we hear it more. But I definitely feel like it's just getting out there more, which is awesome. I think that's great. Eric asks, what type of games do you have zero interest in? There are zero interest minis that have a game attached to them. That's different than a game with minis. Subtle, but significant difference. Co-ops, as a general rule, really don't have any interest in. There are a couple of notable exceptions. Sherlock Holmes. So those kind of the exit games, escape room type stuff, yes, they're co-ops, but I feel like those are a different category of co-op than like a Pandemic. They just feel different. Sherlock Holmes, stuff like that. Mr. President is a solo game, and there's definitely going to be some co-op two-headed president action going on with me and Amanda kind of dual soloing it together. So there's a little bit of a co-op aspect there. Gloomhaven, we own it. We haven't gotten to it yet. We will before the Golden Elephant Award finalists come out next month. Normally wouldn't have interest in, but there's been enough people whose opinions I respect that aren't really into co-ops either that really enjoyed it. So co-ops kind of fit in that world. And for the most part, the heavy Ameritrash stuff just doesn't interest me. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying it doesn't interest me. We tried Zaya, Legend of a Drift System, and I was super stoked for it, but just not our cup of tea. Arkham Horror, Eldritch Horror, stuff like that. Just not going to be us. Not for the theme. I mean, Study in Emerald has the same Cthulhu theme, so it's not the theme. It's just the story, the theme first, story first, and everything else secondary. Just doesn't float my boat. Just not my thing. And for the most part, social deduction games, not my cup of tea either. Would I play them to be sociable? Absolutely, 100%. Would I ever ask to play them? No. But I'm an agreeable dude. I'm willing. But yeah, not something I would ever reach for type thing. What's the tattoo on my forearm? So this one here, it says, more than Galileo loved the stars. That's how Amanda used to write or sign all her emails and letters to me when we were dating. And my buddy Jody, the aforementioned professional poker player, who's getting married for the first, well, yeah, he's getting married this August, and we're going to the wedding. I'm super stoked for, yeah, I couldn't, if there was one person that I couldn't be happier for, it's my boy Jody. So very happy for him. Looking forward to that. He actually paid for this. Was like a wedding present, that which I think is pretty funny. This here is Celtic Trinity symbol. For funny story about this. I got this done in Australia, and it was supposed to have Irish knotwork that goes around the forearm here, all the way around. And I will self-edit what the artist said. When he looked at the design, he said, yeah, I'm going to bleep that up. I said, you know what? I appreciate the honesty. Thank you for being forthright and upfront. I said, can you do the ends of it? And he said, yeah, that I can do. I said, okay, just do the ends. And that's what we settled on. And then never got it finished. So there's that. And then I got a couple more up here, and I got a couple on my back. I have 2 more planned. I still haven't gotten my I haven't got my Marine Corps one yet, which I do want. And the reason I haven't is because I could never settle on what I wanted or where I wanted it. Whether I wanted, you know, the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor, if I just wanted U.S. Marines, if I wanted United States Marine Corps, if I wanted the Bulldog, probably not the Bulldog. Yeah, so I still want to get that. I haven't quite settled on it. And the other one that's potentially planned, 340 patrons away, I get a tattoo, Davis, on me, which I'm really okay with, because every single, and when people talk about tattoos, people get tattoos for just all kinds of different reasons. For me, every single tattoo I have, I will never regret, because it marks a significant point in my life. And why would I regret? Because it was an important part of my life at that time. So I will never regret any of them. And we hit 1,000 patrons. That's kind of a significant moment in my life. I feel like heavy cardboard plays a huge part of my life. It's been my life for the better part of 3.5, almost 4 years now. So it would make sense that I would get that. Somebody asked, hit 1,000 patrons, will you get a tattoo? I said, deal. So that's how we have that going. Yes, and fun is always very, very subjective. And that's why I try, well, opinions are subjective by default, but that one word I really try and avoid. Forsaken Productions says, I feel the same way. Would never have looked into 18XX without heavy cardboard. Doing great work dispelling the intimidation around them. And you know what? If we do nothing else for 18XX and breaking down anything else other than breaking down that barrier, you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm really okay with that. Kabuki Kid, non-gaming question. All right, cool. I'm down for those. What's your favorite genre of music? Favorite bands? I have extremely eclectic tastes, and I'm all over the place as far as it depends on mood. So here, let me think. What have I been into of late? You know what? I'm gonna have to cheat and look some stuff up. So bear with me a moment. Let me look in this list here for a second. So let's see here. And all right, so let me pause this so I don't get, there we go. All right, Tom Odell, I've been jamming on lately. I'm a huge Mumford & Sons fan. I don't care if people think that's old news or too popular. I don't care. A huge fan, because I feel like their music really speaks to me. I grew up a massive Beach Boys fan. I have an affection for gangster rap from early 90s, old school Eazy-E, Public Enemy, stuff like that. I've been into Chet Faker lately. If you haven't listened to Gold or his cover of No Diggity, definitely recommend that. I like country. I like 90s country because that's when I got into country, and so I dig that. From like more modern country, there's not a whole lot there that I like. Sugarland being probably the most recent, I would say, I think. Big fan of Billy Joel. Been jamming to Vienna a lot. And if anybody knows anything about me, you know that that Watsky is kind of my spirit animal of late. And if you haven't listened to Moral of the Story, A, not safe for work. B, he raps really fast. However, you can always watch the lyric one. If you listen to the second verse of Moral of the Story, that's kind of been my life mantra for the last 16 months or so. And anytime I get frustrated, anytime I get down, anytime I get lost in my own head or I get overwhelmed, I listen to that and it snaps me back. And I think that really helps. So I'm kind of all over the place. I really, really am. Yeah, all over the place. So there's probably more bands there than I forgot. Oh, Arctic Monkeys, huge fan of. I would love to see them in concert. The Killers, one of my all-time favorite bands. I've seen them in concert 3 times. No Doubt. I'm a huge Gwen fan. Come at me, bro. Actually, one of the most painful and awesome stories at the same time was 1999 or 2000. It was the Return to Saturn tour for No Doubt. Oh, hold on. Hey, priorities. Just a moment. Check it out. 661. Kenneth, welcome aboard. Welcome to the herd. Cheers, Kenneth. Woohoo. All right. 1999 or 2000, it's the Return to Saturn tour for No Doubt. In the end of my Marine Corps career, there were 5 or 6, I think 6 of us, that took the trip from Beaufort, South Carolina, where we were deployed, to Atlanta, Georgia, to go see No Doubt. They were playing at the Tabernacle in Atlanta. Lit was opening for them, and Black Eyed Peas was opening for Lit. Before the show, we're just kind of walking around Tabernacle area. We got to hang out with the guys from Lit for about an hour. That was kind of cool. Just dudes just hanging out. So we hung out with them. And then we went kind of behind the Tabernacle where the tour buses were. We could get right up near them. And wouldn't you know, the clouds parted, light shined down. There's Gwen coming off the bus. And she comes over to where we were. And she was signing autographs, taking pictures, whatever. And she had like sheet creases. Obviously, she'd just woken up. And I was like, hey, Gwen. I was like, and she looks at me and says, is it bad? And I said, nah, you're fine. So would you mind taking a picture? She's like, nah. So here, me and Gwen, arm in arm. Concert was amazing. Unbelievable. Front row. Plus, you know, it's 6 Marines. We found a way for general admission to work our way to the front of the concert. We work our way up there. It's a really tiny venue, too. I mean, super tiny. And awesome show. The next day, we go to Six Flags in Atlanta and ask one of my boys, one of my fellow Marines that's there with me, to hold my camera while I went on a roller coaster. And he set it down somewhere and lost it. So that picture is lost to history. I'm still bitter. I'm man enough to admit it. I'm bitter. Okay? Can't help it. Anyway, I've seen No Doubt a few times. Of Monsters and Men. The live album for Mumford & Sons was filmed here at Red Rocks and recorded at Red Rocks. Best show I've ever seen in my life. It was unbelievable. No, it was remarkable because I could believe that I was there. It was really cool. A really good time there. So there you go. All right. Long story long. You guys know me. You know that's how it's going to be. Carmen asks, what features of a game table are a must? Any features or add-ons you wouldn't recommend? Sounds good in theory, not so good in practice. Awesome question. All right, so as y'all know here, we have a BoardGameTables.com table, not the Duchess. This is actually a custom table we ordered. And on our website, if you go to the FAQ, it gives all the details of it, like it's the Knotty Alder. I don't know what color finish it is. It's a dark wood. Actually, we recently just got sent these guys. So these are, so we have card holders already, but let me set it right here. You guys might be able to see it. I actually reached out to them. Yeah, there you go. You can see how the slit here is in an angle. That's for the cameras overhead. So they custom made these for us for the live stream. So, and this is the color of the table. You guys can kind of see it, and you've seen it before, but this is the color. We like the dark wood. But let's start with the most important aspect of a gaming table, provided you have space, right? That and can afford it, and all of those caveats. 42 inches. That is the single most important stat I have learned about a board game table. or a table in general in which you are going to play board games, whether it's a recessed one like that, or inset one or recessed one like this, or whether it's just a dining room table. 42 inches. The reason that's the width of a table. You could play any board game that I've encountered, at least, comfortably with both a large board as well as player tableaus, and have plenty of space, but also not feel like the other person on the other side of the table is a million miles away. So 42 inches, that works with Dominant Species, that works with Wildcatters, that works. I'm trying to think of other really big, well, hell, the Gallerist, or any games with these large boards and player tableaus. Perfect. So 42 inches we have found is the optimal game playing area for a table. For a game, a inset or subset, whatever, recessed game table. Other things that we have learned here. We like 6 feet wide. That feels good for 6 players all the way around the table. That feels comfortable. The other thing is the armrest, where you actually rest your arms. This was my one big critique that I always had with Geek Chic. Like the craftsmanship was amazing, but they had really thin armrest rails that were super uncomfortable. We tested them out. We'd sat at a table and played on them, and just really uncomfortable. Whereas these, they're 3 inches wide. I mean, we've had this now for, April will be a year, I think, or is it June? Anyway, we've had it for a number of months, and on all the live streams, it's totally comfortable. And we've said this on live streams before, that everyone's just comfortable. 3-inch wide armrest area, or edge all the way around. So that 42-inch play area actually is 48 inches across, because it adds 3 inches for the armrest area. But if you just had a dining room table that's 42 inches, perfect. Let's see what else. The cup holders are awfully nice. We have 2 on the sides of each table, and then we have a double here in the middle, in between the 2 sides, the long sides. Those have been invaluable. Definitely get a lot of use. Obviously, the one to my right here doesn't get used, because I use this for where I keep my keyboard for the production, for switching cameras and everything during normal live streams. So some folks, you've seen like the little slits carved into the armrests for card holders. Better in concept than in actual use. I cannot recommend that at all. And that's why we actually get mobile card holders like these, to where, you know what, if you're using it, great. If not, you can move it out of the way. And you can position it exactly on the table where you want. You can put it here on the armrest in front of you, the whole 9 yards. So definitely recommend getting these guys. Other than that, it's pretty much aesthetic. Like, I've seen speakers on tables. I've seen LED lights. If that's your jam, go with it. I want a table to be a table. And this is a super comfortable one. I'm really happy with it. And it's sturdy, because the overhead camera, I have to manually turn that on. It's actually a hard switch on the XA30 camera that we use for the main camera. I have to physically turn that on, so I have to step on the table every time. And it holds my weight. I'm 220 pounds. 215. All right, it's between 213 and 217, all right, if we're being honest. And it holds me no problem. So yeah. Definitely 42 inches. I definitely like the play surface that this is, and it's a speed felt, so it's like poker tables, to where you can easily pick up cards and everything. But yeah, overall, I gotta say I'm very happy with the table so far. So there you go. Sorry to hear that, Kabuki Kid. Was the flop in the WSOP your worst bad beat story? I guess given the context, we were like in the top, just outside the top 200. I guess given the amount of money that was at risk, that's probably my worst bad beat story. I think so, I guess. Was I a good waiter? Of course, Carmen. Chatty with diners. Any poor tip stories? Oh, boy. You know what? Not going to go there. Yes, I think I was a very good waiter. I chatted customers up when it was appropriate. I didn't when it wasn't. And I was very good at making recommendations because we had to try all the food, try all the wine. And yeah, I think I was pretty good at it. I actually really enjoyed it. The worst thing you can order at a restaurant, in a typical restaurant, is hot tea, because that's such a pain in the ass for the servers to do. So I don't do it, even though, as you guys know, I drink a lot of hot tea. I won't order it at a restaurant because I know how much of a pain in the ass that is. Let's see, other tips. Having come from the service industry and being a waiter, good quality service, I found, is arguably as important to me as the food. And there's a certain way you're supposed to serve people. You always serve the woman first. You never show the customer the back of your hand. You always make sure the plate comes in this way. Worst thing that a server can do, not worst thing, that's being a little melodramatic, but one of the things I hate most is whenever you have your server or a food runner come out to the table and they auction off food. Hey, who had the burger? Or who had the enchiladas? Or what? No. Every table, like, it goes clockwise, seat 1, 2, 3, and 4. And when the server rings it up, they should be seat 1 has this, so that when the food runner or the waiter comes out, they know seat 1 is that seat, so they just bring you your meal. That's how it should be done. And I'm not talking at a fine dining restaurant. Obviously, that's going to take place. But I don't care where you go. That's just simple common sense. That's just good service. That's how it should be. And that seems to be lost nowadays. We're getting into pet peeves and getting me all riled up here, Carmen. No, yeah, service is a really big deal, and I think good service is really important. And I tip my cap to my mom. Waited tables her whole life, and I grew up in the restaurant industry when I was a kid, and all through up until I was in the Marine Corps. And I think there's something to be said for really good diner waiters and waitresses. So tip your wait staff. Seriously, it matters. It really does. What inspired the trip down to MeepleCon? We're glad you came. Honestly, a lot of people just said, hey, why don't you change your ticket? It was Jess from Artana, Board Game Girl. There was Steph, Pumpkin. If you've ever seen any of her pictures, she now works for Renegade. Ryan Bruns suggested I go down. And there were the Dice Tower crew said, yeah, we're going down there as well. The Eagle Griffin crew said, hey, we're heading down there. And I was like, all right, it doesn't cost too much to change my ticket and add an extra leg. So I was like, plus I can play cards, meet up with Andrew and Brad maybe, experience MeepleCon, and maybe get the best cheesecake I've ever had, which didn't happen, unfortunately. Yeah, so it was a lot of good reasons. And I'm glad I did. I interviewed Tim. You'll hear it in the episode tonight. A really cool dude, and I dig the way he thinks about things, and I dig the way he just said, you know what, there should be something, so therefore I'm going to make it. Much like what I did with the show. So I totally can appreciate that. Definitely plan on coming back next year. Eric says, oh man, did I miss something about the new edition of Container? Oh, that one? Kevin Nesbitt of Mercury Games, there's 2 copies in existence right now. One they have, the second one he brought down for me. I had no idea. That was awesome. That's what it looks like. I have it right here. You guys want to see some of it? If you're not, then I'll just set it aside. Don't worry about it. But Kevin and I actually talk about it in the episode tonight. It's also going to be on. You'll see graphics, and it's just us sitting in front of the camera basically and talking about it. But he gives the why it's the size that it is, and I think it was eye-opening for me because I didn't think they went about it in a backwards way, in a good way, but the opposite way than I expected them to have thought about the game. And I kind of dig it. And yes, it's obnoxious. It's way big and it's awesome. So when Kleiker and I were shown this up in Kevin's room, Kleiker was like, that is obnoxious. That is huge. And I am so thrilled I backed it. So there's going to be some of that. Okay. So yeah, pretty cool. Let's see. Barack says, Edward, you guys play and enjoy many heavy Euros, 18xx's. Recently played and streamed a game of the excellent Combat Commander. So I was curious, do you have a favorite war game? There's still so many I haven't played. I really like Unhappy King Charles from GMT. Time of Crisis, arguably not a war game. I get that, but I really enjoyed our plays of that. I enjoy Combat Commander more than I had in the past. So while I'm still more a strategic level or even operational level wargamer than tactical, I enjoyed that a lot. Triumph and Tragedy and U.S. Civil War are also going to be really, really high up there, also from GMT. There's going to be a couple more games that we're going to be playing this month and in April before the Golden Elephant Award finalists are announced that have a shot at it. So yeah, some mix of those, I would say. Heino, I think is how you say that, says, hey, Edward, just looked at the Feudum play session. Was great. Thanks for that. You're welcome. That was the hardest preparation I've ever had to do for a teach in the history of the show, including the show. Well, no, let's exclude the show. The live stream was 5 hours or so of the teach and the playthrough. It took me 15 hours to prepare for that teach. 15 hours. But in the end, really proud of how that turned out and real happy about it, because now that thing's starting to ship and people are starting to get copies of it, that's an intimidating game to get to the table, and that's going to be a tough one to muscle through. The rulebook actually is pretty well put together overall. It's rule dense, I think is a good way to put it. So I'm glad that people will be able to use that as a resource, both as the teaching video as well as the playthrough to help cement the way the rules themselves. So yeah, glad that's out there. No, not hopefully most of y'all don't hate my voice, but I imagine most of y'all hate the sound of your own voice, or at least that's been in my experience. MeepleCon is absolutely open to the public, and it's held. Actually, all this is going to be talked about in the episode tonight, but it's held at the East Side Cannery, which is a locals casino. It's in a convention room, a convention hall type thing. It had 400, 500 people over the course of the 3 days. It's usually held right around the time of Gamma. Like next year, it might be just before Gamma as opposed to the weekend afterwards. Cost, I want to say it was $60 for the weekend. That sounds right. But listen to the episode tonight, and you'll actually hear it direct from Tim, all the details on it. Have not, Alexander asks, speaking of VTOL, have you ever seen or tried Mars and or Escape Plan? Mars, have not seen, have not tried. Escape Plan, I saw the prototype being played a lot with VTOL at LyriaCon. And two notes about that. One, VTOL was super excited that somebody broke the game because he's like, yes, I get to fix that. And he was super stoked. That's the whole point of playtesting, right? The second thing was, at the end of the convention, he came up to me and he was like, okay, now you can play Escape Plan, because he told me, no, it's not for you, not for you. And he says, I've taken out all the randomness. Now you might enjoy it. VTOL being VTOL, he's a trip. So I'm looking forward to giving that a try for sure. Oh, yeah, I imagine Leela gets all the spellings on her Starbucks cups. Leela, like, if you just asked me, how would you spell that? That would be Leela. But no, it's spelled Lila, but it's pronounced Leela. See, I will try and remember that. Oh, there you go. Meeple Overboard just answered it all. All right, cool. Hey, Scott. All right. Says, whoa, actually caught a live heavy cardboard stream. We try and mix up the times in which we do live streams, right? So welcome. Awesome. And also, we try and do this because, let's face it, if we do a live stream like we're doing tomorrow at 1900 Mountain Daylight Time, local time for us, that's pretty late. That's 1, 2 in the morning, possibly even 3 in the morning for over on the in the old world over in Europe. And so we try and do afternoon streams, like when Tony and I were doing the 18XX ones, which are coming back. We said we were going to try and do that once a month. Do those during the day so that it's better for European viewers, plus those that don't want to, work during the day, during the week. I can't possibly be that far behind. Yep, I am. All right, let's see if we can go through this a little quicker. Poker with modern card drafting mechanic. No, leave poker alone. Don't mess with it. Craft Dragon. Hi, Vince. Jeff, finally. Wow, there's a lot of cool names that I don't normally recognize in here. That's awesome. That's awesome to see. Welcome, all y'all. Appreciate that. Vince says he's having a beer for Edward and Amanda at the quiet, normal month ahead. We appreciate that. Thank you. It's 1 a.m. over there in China. Yeah, the Ash living under the table got me pretty good. Will we see more Eklund Sierra Madre games before HeavyCon? As a side note, will you get enough plays of John Company to consider it for the Golden Elephant Award? Okay, so let's see. We'll take these one at a time. Will we get more Eklund Sierra Madre games before HeavyCon? Definitively, yes. You know why I can say that? Because Cole is going to be here, and I'm going to make him sit down and teach John Company to y'all on a live stream, because I am not going to try and tackle that. He's agreed to, hopefully, we're still working on the timing, but hopefully a day or two before HeavyCon begins, we're going to live stream John Company and have him teach it and have him go from there. And will we get enough plays of John Company to consider it for the Golden Elephant Award? Yes. And Eric says, hey, Edward, just pre-ordered a copy of the new version of Arkwright, thanks to your podcast and stream coverage of the game. Awesome. Being one of the games you covered early on, how has it aged for you? Very well. It doesn't hit the table a lot just because it's the nature of the show, right? A lot of games that that are still excellent games but don't necessarily hit the table enough is just due to timing of it. But no, it's held up very well. In fact, I can make that case for every single Golden Elephant Award winner, and that tells me we've gotten it right. I had a Bora Bora tomorrow night. Your top 3 Felds. Ooh, that's a tough call, Jeff. Let's see. Castles of Burgundy definitely has to be in there because it's mine and Amanda's go-to. Spiekerstadt's got to be in there. Recently played Trajan, actually the day after we streamed Bora Bora, because we had talked about it during that stream, and enjoyed that. Didn't love it, but enjoyed it. That's a tough question. I don't know what would be number 3. I feel pretty good about Castles of Burgundy being number 1, Spiekerstadt being number 2. Number 3 would be some mix of Macau, Trajan, or Strasbourg, I think would be competition for that 3rd spot, and I don't know which one I would put there. Have not tried Spirit Island. I saw it. I had like a little demo done for me at Gen Con or Essen. I can't remember which it was. I think it was Essen. Still didn't grab me, but I'm willing to give it a try. All right, Scott, willing to try it. Hey, Murr. He says, I keep hearing the term opaque used, and while I know what the word means, I don't understand its usage when describing board games. Can you explain it? Think of it as another way to explain it, kind of butterfly effect. you make a decision and you don't know the repercussions of that decision until well down the road. Whereas a lot of games, say a worker placement game, just whatever game, it doesn't matter. You go, you take a worker placement action or spot, and then you either immediately carry out that action, and that's going to get you something, or you carry it out later on in that round, and the repercussions of that action, pretty direct, right? It's very tactical in that respect. Whereas a decision in a more opaque game, or an opaque decision, kind of a decision tree, makes it, you don't know the repercussions of these decisions until well down the road. So you can't really, until you have a firm grasp of the why of a game, you don't know the impact of a certain decision. And I think a lot of Hollandspiel, I mean, whether it's in Infamous Traffic, a lot of the Eklund games, especially the PAX series, are like that. 4X is another good one, to where you are making decisions and you can't necessarily plan out how the outcome is going to be. So I feel like that's a pretty good rough explanation for opacity in games. Boja says, hi, have you played Gaia Project yet? And we have not. However, our goal is to get that both streamed as well as reviewed this side of HeavyCon. So in the next 6-7 weeks or so, thereabouts. So I'll be able to, give some feedback on that at that point. I'm glad you like that, Anne. And Kyle says, speaking of Sierra Madre games, please direct your wizard reprint powers towards Phil and drum up some excitement for the PAX series. Maybe that would help him recover from his recent troubles. I don't think I have Phil's ear in any way, shape, or form. Phil marches to the beat of his own drum, and I just don't think I can have much of an impact on that, unfortunately, Kyle. Daniel says, after watching your play of Rising Sun, I tried it, was super surprised at how heavy and opaque the game is because it doesn't look it. What game has surprised you the most in terms of how opaque it is? Surprised? I don't know that I've been surprised at a game being really opaque. However, I think that PAX Renaissance still to this day is the most opaque game that I've ever encountered. But I kind of knew that going in, that it was going to be, but whoo. I think Ash did an amazing job, and that's Ash, biped, 2 legs. Ash did an amazing job of breaking down the barrier to entry for PAX when he taught that on the streams. I think he did a really, really great job of that. But yeah, PAX Ren, I think, would be the one that qualifies for that. Nigel says, sorry if it's been asked. It has not. But how did the survey go, and did we get a good response? We for sure did. So for those that don't know, we sent out a survey 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I can't remember exactly the length of time. That we sent it out to all our patrons. It was a pretty extensive survey. It covered a wide gamut of topics. And I want to say we sent out about 650 surveys, and we had a response rate of, we had about 450 or so respondents. It might be a little bit less than that, but right around there, which is pretty solid response rate, I feel like, 2/3. We haven't had a chance to digest all the answers yet, but we're going to, and we'll actually be talking about them both with patrons as well as on the show, just to give people, because give people not feedback, but give them our feedback of the survey and what we are getting out of it and how it's going to help shape the show going forward. There's not going to be any major changes. There's not going to be, the podcast isn't going away, or the YouTube channel's not going, nothing crazy like that. As I said, we're going to have to scale it back a hair so Amanda doesn't burn out with her having her day job still. But outside of that, it's more or less just honing the direction of the show and finding out everything from the website to the show to the guild to the Slack channel to all this stuff. I'm really excited to dig into that. So we haven't dug into it yet, but yeah, really happy with their response rate. And Joseph says, as far as you guys' suggestions on heavier games, I agree it helps with apprehension to see that, yes, they are heavy, but they're not impossible to learn. And that was kind of the impetus for the YouTube channel and doing the playthroughs, because we want to show folks that Arkwright isn't 4 people for 4 hours sitting around the table doing this. Your turn. If you watch any of our streams, we're having a great time playing these games. We're cutting up, we're busting on one another, we're joking, we're, obviously we're all trying to focus on the game as well, and obviously interacting with the chat and the peanut gallery as well, but in general, just trying to demystify a lot of these heavier games, because in the end, it helps all of us, right? Because if more people come into the heavier side, A, more people to play with, B, publishers and designers see, oh, wow, there's a bigger market. Let's design more of those games. And obviously, see, it helps the show. I mean, it's a win-win-win all the way around the board. So it's a self-perpetuating cycle. We help y'all, help us, help y'all. Win-win-win. Hey, Cave Hines. Murr says, my wife has a theory on tattoos, which I told Edward once. You know people with 1 or 2 tattoos. You don't know anybody who has 3. If they have 3, they're planning their 4th and beyond. There is a bit of an addiction to them. And I like the rite of passage that they should be painful. They should be meaningful, but meaningful is a personal decision in that respect. But yeah, I enjoy them. I'm glad I have them. I don't regret a single one. I'm looking forward to getting more. Eventually, I'm thinking about getting a sleeve for this arm, but we'll see if that ever happens. I don't know. Any more information on late night cardboard with punching cardboard? No, because I am a bag of failure. So Jim, if you hear this, it's my fault. I am sorry. I will remedy that this weekend. I've told him that in the past, and I flaked out. Life just got in the way, and I let it slide, and that's 100% on me. I'm going to make it a priority this weekend. So you have my commitment to that. I promise to y'all watching, listening, and to Jim, I'm sorry. First concert I ever saw was the Beach Boys as well, Kabuki Kid. Very cool. It was after a Portland Beavers game in Portland, Oregon. AAA team up there. What are my 3 favorite actors or actresses and your favorite and least favorite movie from each of them? That 3 is way too much. I can tell you that I have no problem separating the politics of an actor with the actor's ability to act. And by actor, I mean actor, actress, whatever. I would say my favorite actor and actress, respectively, would probably be Sean Penn for actor and Natalie Portman for actress. Favorite film for Sean Penn? One of the few movies I've ever truly cried at was Dead Man Walking with Susan Sarandon. I think Sean Penn is just stellar. I really think he's amazing. Yeah, I think his acting chops are top notch. I guess if you were to put another one in there, I would say Edward Norton is probably really high up there. I haven't watched a ton of movies in the last handful of years, so I can't speak to much as far as like more modern, like the next generation. But yeah, I would say those 3. Let's see, favorite movie from Edward Norton. Oh God, there's a lot. American History X, 7. Not 7, sorry. American History, oh God. Fight Club, that's it. But there's a bunch. And as far as Natalie Portman goes, probably V for Vendetta for my favorite with her. I thought she was really good as a kid in The Professional. So, yeah, there you go. I was able to come up with 3 off the top of my head. That's impressive to me. Not an emotional guy, but the story behind your tattoo for Amanda got to me. It's adorable. Well, it's true, Eric. True story. That's awesome. Scott says he rides his bike to Public Enemy. If there was a concert that I wish I could have seen back in the day, it would have been Queen with Freddie Mercury, because I still think to this day he's the greatest frontman in the history of music. That would have been cool. I would have loved to have seen Zeppelin back in their heyday. I'm not even a Zeppelin fan, but the drums, whew. Let's see. Wow, am I behind? I'm sorry, guys. That's funny. Eric says some random person has a picture of Edward and Gwen hanging on their wall right now. That's funny. Yeah, I'm always behind on the questions. I know. You're going to learn. Ask the Elephants with me, take forever. With Amanda, they're like 15 minutes because she's like, boom, 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 done. Hey, Tony Boydell's here. Hi, Tony. Oh, okay. Murr says the armrest rails on his Geek Chic are 3.5 inches. What? I wonder what table that was then. Because I remember it being at Gen Con and it being a Geek Chic, but maybe it was a different style of it. So that's possible. All right. I don't know what it is, Tony, but I'm going to trust you on this. He says, also, can I get an Edward shout out for the Uganda Game Changers crowdfunding campaign? See his BGG blog today. I'll tell you what, Rob, if you can find a link to Tony Boydell's blog for today, post it in the chat, will you, please? Yeah, everybody says that they watch our videos, or not everybody, but a lot of people watch our videos at like 1.25 speed or 1.5 speed, and I always sound high when that goes back to normal because I have a pretty particular cadence to the way I talk, and I try and enunciate clearly. That was one of the big things that we got from very early on in the podcast. Youster and Christina from over in Starting Player, the designers and publishers of Three Kingdoms Redux. They said one of the things that they really appreciate about our podcast is we enunciate very well and we don't talk too fast, and we have very accent neutral voices. And so it's easy for non-native speakers to follow along, which it's not intentional, I don't think. I think it's just the way I tend to talk, but I'm very glad to hear that. So I'm glad to hear that that helps, but also I guess I sound high after you guys slow me down. So sorry about that. While Heavy Cardboard does not have a drug policy in place, and even though we live in Colorado, I don't smoke weed. I don't begrudge anybody that does, just not my cup of tea. Again, go back to the whole father was a raging alcoholic, and I also had druggies for parents, so I never got into the drug scene either. So just not my cup of tea. Speaking of which, and Tony Boydell with his hot cup of chai with him, this is my second cup of tea. Cheers. That's awesome. Matthias says my patron shirt is in transit. Going to be the coolest peanut around the polar circle. That is so surreal to me still. Like seeing people in all the different parts of the world, either, you know, wearing one of our shirts or just playing a game with one of our glasses. It's just surreal to me. It's so awesome. The community that's gone around this, that's so awesome. Oh, hey, Jess. She says, yeah, I didn't get Cinnaholic either. You know, I assume Cinnaholic is like Cinnabon. Or Cinnabon, right? Cinnabon, you know, the big cinnamon bun place that is a chain here in the States. I assume that's similar. Yeah, terrible that didn't get my cheesecake while in Vegas. That's a crime. So you know how Ignacy Trevicek, a lot of people bring him cookies at cons? There are two things that you can always bring, as far as I'm concerned: cheesecake or stroopwafel. Nah, for Amanda. She's actually keto. She's been on this keto diet she's trying that instead of Weight Watchers now. That said, probably not stroopwafel. Oh God, now I can't think of the name of the cookies we had in Holland and Germany. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. They're like gingerbread, but not. They're better. Those are always welcome. So after seeing the new edition of Container in person, what do you prefer, Edward? First or new edition? I haven't played the second edition with the new investment bank, so I can't speak to that. That said, the first edition, we have custom heavy cardboard painted ships that Tony made, so that's kind of awesome. But once I get this on the table, we're hopefully going to live stream it sooner rather than later. I'll be able to answer that. I don't know that I can really answer it having not played it and actually had it out on a table and seen how it fits on a table. So I really don't want to say anything on that yet. And Scott says, I hope they gave Franz Benno DeLong the heavy props for designing it. Absolutely. You'll hear you'll hear about that, I believe, in the interview that I sat down with Kevin, and you'll see that Franz's name is first on the box. So no, he absolutely is very wanted to make sure he honors the memory as well as the widow of Franz, and I think they did a good job with that, at least in that respect. Ray says, if you didn't have to prepare for the show, what game would you want to play right now that you're fired up about? Ooh, good question. What would I want to play right now? Other than the 10th edition of Container? Fields of Despair. Still haven't gotten to it, but I will before the month's out. I should say before we announce the Golden Elephant Award finalists. That's one, and it goes back to that World War I thing, and credit to Dan Carlin for that. So yeah, probably that one, I would say. Oh, I assume that's Jeremy. Hey, Jeremy, from Man vs. Meeple says, from Indiana, it's cold here. It's not. It's low 70s here today. Who knew? It's supposed to snow on Monday and Tuesday, mind you, but low 70s? That's nuts. It's crazy talk. Stay warm, Jeremy, all right? Ben says, happy to have you back in Denver. I think heavy cardboard withdrawal is an actual and serious condition. You guys managed. I appreciate it. And you guys got a lot of stuff coming. So, yeah, it's good to be home as well, for sure. And that's Carmel, right? It's not Carmel where you're at, Jeremy, I think. Is that how you pronounce it? And we try and think about folks over the pond. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, that's just the way we work, Renji. Scott says, John Company isn't that hard to teach. And I almost typed that without laughing. Yeah, I have zero interest in trying to teach that game because I sat and played it, the official release version with Cole at BGG Con. And while I'm sitting there playing the game with Cole and him running the game and him playing as well, I'm just sitting here thinking about how the hell am I going to stream this game? How am I going? And I'm like, I'm dreading teaching this game. Just it's another opaque one. Shocker from Cole, opaque. But yeah, so I definitely, once Cole said he was coming to HeavyCon, I was like, okay, then I'm going to have you on here and have you teach John Company because, ooh, yeah, I that's not to disparage the game. I actually really enjoyed it, and I actually really want to play this 2-player because then it becomes less a negotiation game and more a straight Euro that Cole described it as, and I'm really, really excited about exploring that aspect of it. But teaching it, yeah, no thanks. I would rather teach High Frontier, and that doesn't intimidate me with some of the colonization expansion. It doesn't intimidate me. John Company intimidates me for teaching. As far as biogenesis, I won't say never. Just like High Frontier, it's going to eventually probably come, but it's not anytime soon with biogenesis, because I couldn't even read the first paragraph without having to look up words. So that might be a bit down the road there, Mitch. Sorry about that. And everyone's making jokes in chat about craps being a co-op dice game, because that's what we did. It was me, Steph, Ambi, and Toby went and shot dice, which I've always said I'm the human cooler. I'm terrible at shooting dice. I enjoy it, but I know I'm bad at it, so I don't do it often. But to get together with friends and do it as a social thing, sure, I'm down for that. Is Forbidden Stars the best dudes on a map game with 3 to 4 players? Whoo! The best. I don't know if I'm willing to say that, but it was really good. I gotta say, I enjoyed that a whole lot more. And oh, hey, look at this. Welcome Bernadette to the herd. Cheers. Thank you very much. We appreciate the support, Bernadette. All right. Scott, anyone got an invite to the gathering of friends? You know who has 2 thumbs and doesn't? This guy. Don't get me started. What's the next game I plan on buying? 18 Ireland or Rolling Stock 2.0. So basically all aboard games. When Scott comes, I'll ask him to bring a couple games with him. So that's probably the next ones I plan on buying. Wow, I'm able to think of these off the top of my head. I usually struggle with this stuff, so that's pretty cool. Do you think there are any heavy games that would work with a legacy implementation? Oh, I definitely think there's the potential for it. I like the idea of an 18xx legacy. We said that as a joke, but when you actually stop and think about it, you're like, I could see that working. There are aspects of this, like the evolution of time. Like, yeah. Now, would it ever happen? Probably not. But yeah, I think that would be cool. And there's, what about something like Wildcatters, right? What if you almost combined games in a sense that Wildcatters, you start from the early oil industry, right? To where you're drilling for oil. And then what about through oil production? And that kind of evolves the game a little bit. I think that would be pretty cool. Yeah, so I definitely think there's potential there. It doesn't have to be lighter games like, you know, Pandemic Legacy or Charterstone or Seafall or any of those. That's awesome. Yay. All right. Kal-El. I think it's Kal-El, right? It's been a while. So welcome back, by the way. I think that's how you pronounce that. I want to thank you, Edward. Last Saturday, introduced Food Chain Magnate and The Great Zimbabwe to my friends. It was a blast, thanks to the heavy cardboard playthroughs. Awesome. Really glad to hear that. And also, credit to Matt, because he's the one that taught Food Chain. So good job, Matt, there. Yeah, we have arguably the most thorough FAQ in the history of FAQs. Rob put it together, one of our mods here. 28 pages for an FAQ. It's pretty thorough. Hi, Anthony. Welcome. Oh, dude, how did I forget Fast Times at Ridgemont High? The single, like, a most amazing collection of Oscar winners. Yeah, Fast Times. Just crazy. Awesome, good movie. Good call. Yeah, Fast Times is definitely one of those I can't watch when it's time for bed, because you can't turn it off. So here's my question for y'all real quick. What are your I can't watch that when laying in bed because I will stay up and watch it movies? I mean, I have a ton, right? But the ones that come off the top of my head are The Color of Money, easy. One of my all-time favorite movies. Rounders, just because, duh. Fast Times, I think, would be on there. Swingers also would be on there. Red Dawn, the original. I refuse to watch the new. Yeah. V for Vendetta is on there. That's pretty, and there's a lot on that list, I reckon. Have I seen Annihilation with Natalie Portman? I have not. I am apprehensive about it, but Cody says it's a really great sci-fi flick. Awesome. We very well might go see that then. Cool. No, Daniel, not Natalie Portman in Attack of the Clones. Come on now. Yeah, everything I do seems to be long form, right? Whether it's conversations with heavy cardboard or these Ask the Elephants. It's kind of my thing. Okay, cool. Thanks for linking to that. Tony Boydell's blog there, Rob. Speculoos. There you go. Thank you. God, I felt like an idiot not being able to come up with that. Amanda says Speculoos for when you see this in an hour. Now, Amanda's got jokes. You're not wrong, but still. Eric says he's a big fan of keto. He lost 40 pounds doing it. I lost 54 pounds with Weight Watchers, and I've kept it off. Like I said, I hover between 213, 217 usually on a given week, which I'm okay with. I would still like to drop that down a little bit. And I'm not 100% doing, I'm not willing necessarily to do keto with Amanda, because I enjoy bread, hash browns, and rice, especially rice too much. But yeah, it's definitely, Amanda has said, and she'll probably talk about this on upcoming shows. She didn't this week because it was more or less about Gamma and everything else, but she might going forward, that there's just a clear delineation where in keto to where you can't eat this and you can eat that. Whereas in Weight Watchers, you can pretty much eat whatever you want. It's just in moderation, and don't think that works really well for her. And this seems to really be working for her. So we'll see. So that's awesome. Totally support it. And Amanda says, so at cons, you can bring me speculoos and cheesecake. Amanda says you can always bring her beef jerky, macadamia nuts, or cheese. All right. Awesome. Banker Dave, what's up, man? Says, yeah, pretty nice day today. Get outside. I promise I will go outside and answer some emails on a laptop out in the backyard once I'm done with this. Priorities, though. All right, Tony Boydell says, okay, legit question as opposed to all the other fluff. Understood, Tony. As Edward might have missed it in the chat earlier. Have I played 1853, the Lookout reprint, and if so, any advice? I have not yet. Sorry, Tony. I would recommend either asking in the guild or in the Slack channel. That would be where I go. So no, have not experienced 53 yet. In fact, wait, you said the Lookout reprint. Do you mean 54? And if so, the answer is still no. I have it downstairs, but have not gotten to it yet. The 44-54 reprint from Lookout, have not. But again, I would say talk to the folks that have in either the guild or the Slack channel. Bruno says, oh, I played John Company with Tony Boydell, Uli, and Nick Case at LyriaCon, and wow, just wow. I had no idea what was going on. None of us did after the game ended. That would be the definition of an opaque game. Thank you for exemplifying that, Bruno. Reynald says, great, you're online. I'm at work and was Googling what Uwe Rosenberg I should buy, and bam, Edward's online. I have and love Le Havre and think about Caverna or Feast for Odin, Agricola, Fields of Arles. I'm biased. I don't like the wide open aspect of Uwe's later games. So if you haven't, if you enjoy a tighter, more restrictive worker placement game, in that respect, I cannot suggest Agricola, i.e. Misery Farm, enough. If that's too tight and too restrictive, Caverna, excellent choice. If you like a little bit more wide open, like a Caverna, and focus strictly on a 2, or now with the expansion, I guess 3-player game, Fields of Arle, I think would be an excellent choice as well. So hopefully, Reynold, that helps you, guide you to make your own decision. Cool? Stop that, Phil. Phil says, ooh, Out of the Park 19 just dropped. Do you play much these days? Pretty time consuming, I know. I would love to. You got to make cuts somewhere, and unfortunately, Out of the Park baseball has fallen by the wayside. I would love to, and yes, it's such a time sink. It is such an amazing sim for baseball, and I am a huge baseball fan. Well, less so now because I have less time. But yeah, I would love to get into it. So I'll tell you what, let me live vicariously through you, Phil. So you periodically give me updates on that. How's that? Craft Dragon says, thinking about getting 89 from Deep Thought Games. And by that, you mean all aboard games, I hope. Sometime after my deep dive night takes off. Awesome. Definitely an awesome entry to the more financial side of the 18xx games, and it has long legs, meaning you could play that game 20, 30 times and still find enjoyment in that game. So 89 is definitely one that we strongly recommend. How do we look back on 18CZ? Was it a good experience compared to other 18xx games? JU asks. 100% unequivocally yes. The 2-player experience was a really enjoyable 18xx game. It wasn't just an enjoyable 2-player 18xx game, and it's one that I really enjoyed. Will it be an all-time favorite? I don't know. For 2 players, likely. For more, I haven't experienced it yet, so I can't say that. But yeah, definitely really enjoyed my 2-player games of 18CZ. Ben says, I'm getting 18 Ireland delivered for HeavyCon. Should you fancy opening it up for its maiden voyage? I'm reticent to commit to any games ahead of time, Ben. If you notice, I haven't scheduled any games for HeavyCon, but provided things are smooth and going smoothly at HeavyCon, then I would be thrilled to be able to do that. That'd be awesome. Barack says, any chance of doing a Dominant Species playthrough this year? I would say if I had a Magic 8 Ball and I shook it and I looked at it, I would say the answer is yes. It's going to happen this year. Reynald says, by the way, thanks. Because of you, I got a copy of the last print of Food Chain Magnate. Love it. I never would have really paid attention to it without your amazing channel. That's awesome. Call me a noble steed. Like, that feels really good. I'm glad to hear that, man. That tells me we're accomplishing our mission with our playthroughs, right? It's not so much to sell games. It's much more to help y'all make informed decisions, both with the reviews on the podcast as well as the playthroughs. And if you do choose to pull the trigger, to help lower that barrier to entry by teaching y'all the game. So that tells me we're hitting on all cylinders. That makes me really happy to hear. Eric says, seems like there's a direct correlation between you getting patrons when you do an Ask the Elephant, hint, hint. I mean, we haven't pushed on it real hard since the patron drive back in October, the end of October, early November, because we just don't want to push it and beat people over the head with it. You know, it's there at the bottom, the pledgehc.com, different ways to support the show. And we mention it at the end of every live stream. But other than that, we don't mention it a whole lot. We want people to support the show because they want to support the show, not because of any other reason. Because A, we want people to do it because they want to do it. B, if they're doing it for the right reasons, in theory, they will support the show more than just a month or more than just for some cool giveaway that we're doing or something like that. So we're trying to build a community around it, and if that helps us support the show and help get Amanda full-time and continue to upgrade the studio and just more or less so on the more, but more on the better aspect of it, then it's a win-win. Again, it helps us, help you, help us, help you. So it's symbiotic, right? So that's awesome. Yeah, and it is pretty cool to be able to see it happen live. And this was one of the things I was most excited about when we talked about upgrading the studio over the new year, was we were trying to figure out a way to do this, and we realized, oh, we can pause a picture frame, a digital picture frame, upload a bunch of pictures, have them preloaded, and then we can do it in real time. And that's been a real cool thing to be able to share, because right behind the camera and up above it, up there, there's a light, and I've talked about this in the past. The light does one of two things. It either blinks when we get a new patron, which tells me to look at my phone, hey, we got a new patron, celebrate it, right, which we have been. And the other thing it does is it will turn red, and our mods have access to a specific email address that turns that light red and basically is saying, hey, idiots, you're screwing something up in the game. Stop, take a look at chat, figure out what you're doing wrong, fix it. In so many words. And then we tell them, hey, once we fix it, they turn it back to green. And there you go. So there's a little behind the inside baseball, behind the scenes stuff that you guys might or might not know. That's how I know that we get new patrons. Dustin says, having just struggled through it last night, is there any worse rule book than Keeper? I couldn't think of one in a moment. Yes. Yes, there is. The original Rischerfurt. Keeper. The problem with the rulebook is things get reiterated like 3 and 4 times, and they're said in different ways, and you don't realize they're reiterating, and that just adds the confusion. Richard Breeze is a really nice fella. I've met him. He's very, very genuine, very warm, very just a kind fellow. I wish he would get somebody else to do his rulebooks, though. Fact. Cauliflowered rice is a decent substitute for rice, Eric says. No, it's not. No. I disagree. You have the right to be wrong, though, Eric. It's okay. No worries. I'm a rice fiend. I'm reminded of the Mitch Hedberg line that rice is awesome whenever you want to eat 2,000 of something. I love rice. I really do. It's, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Eder. Yeah, you did know it'd still be live. I know it's been going on for 2 hours and 20 minutes, but it's kind of my thing. Whatever. So if I'm late getting the emails today and tomorrow, Oh, that's awesome. Banker Dave says, I ran up to Loveland. So Banker Dave, right? Hardcore in chat. Says he ran up to Loveland last week, picked up a copy of Asgard for $20 after playing it with you last Saturday. So that's another review and another playthrough that's coming. That teach is going to be a little bit wonky, because if you've never played Asgard, there is no amount of explanation that I can do on the front end of the game to prepare you for what the end game looks like, because it is very much unlike the rest of the game. So I think I'm going to actually save how the end game teach goes until we get there, because it just doesn't. Yeah, that was an awesome experience, and I'm glad I got to play it with Veronica and Mariano and Matthias at LyriaCon, and I really enjoyed that game. But teaching that was not smooth for my first time. It never is the first time I teach. That's why I never teach something for the first time on screen. Nobody wants that. That's not pretty. But the game itself is really good, and I'm looking forward to live streaming that for y'all. And we're trying to make sure that there are going to be copies available for folks that want to order it if they see it and really enjoy it as much as we did. So we're trying to coordinate all that behind the scenes before we live stream that. Kal-El says, crazy idea. What would be the number of patrons to make a series of playthroughs for Age of Steam, all the maps, all 100 something, that's like 160 plus, through 1 to 2 years? Age of Steam extravaganza. It's not so much how many patrons would it make, it's how many patrons would we lose if we did that. The running joke in poker was, yeah, sure, you won, but how much did you lose? I don't foresee that. Let's put it this way. If the show lasts long enough, I would love to be able to cover every map, do a live stream of it. That means we need to go for like 12, 13 years. Okay, deal, done. So how about we just do a few a year, you know, a handful, you know, 5, 6 a year, and no, I guess no, that would have to be like one a month, wouldn't it? Huh. Yeah, we'll see about that. All right, Kal-El. Eder says, I'm patiently waiting for a coin live playthrough. Your best bet probably for the first one is going to be, is it Colonial Twilight, the 2-player one? That's probably going to be me and Tony. Sometime this summer, maybe. This is a tough question, Jacob. Sort of. It says, if you had to put your brand on one game saying every Heavy Cardboard fan should own or play this, what would it be? You know, I've always said that there's only one game that I could even closely suggest that everybody owned, and that's The Climbers, and that's well before Capstone picked that up. So I'm still reticent to say that, but I think The Climbers is probably the closest to fit a lot of what a lot of people would enjoy, because you take a look at the various Golden Elephant Award winners, which you would think that would be the pool from which I would select. But you're telling me that everybody would enjoy one of those games? No chance. So I don't know that there's an answer for that, which I realize is a crappy answer or a non-answer, but it's the truth. I just don't think there is, like, take was it Martin that was asking about what Uwe Rosenberg game to get? I can't definitively say that there is one game that I would blanket suggest across the board for everybody, because some people really dislike Misery Farm, i.e. Agricola. Other people really dislike Caverna because they fall on opposite sides of open versus constrained. And so I just don't think it's possible to make blanket statements like that outside of maybe The Climbers. Or if you wanted to introduce something similar-ish, and it's something that we talked about years ago on the show, that's Bausack, B-A-U-S-A-C-K. There's another name for it here in the States, but it's a auction game that also adds in a bit of dexterity, stacking game. I think that would also be a good one. Obviously, there are exceptions to every rule. But yeah, I think those, because The Climbers can be deeper. It's deeper than it looks. It's attractive in a sense that it's going to draw a crowd around the table playing it. And it looks very simple. It plays very simple, yet there's a little bit more deep strategy than meets the eye at first blush. Bomb MK answered the exact same thing. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm going to try. Is it Paralilata? BG says, hello, Edward. Thanks for your work. You're welcome. Thanks for watching. I expect a playthrough of 1862 EA soon due to the GMT coming reprint. I would say that if GMT, especially with their production of it, I wouldn't say soon. We're working with GMT behind the scenes to possibly work something out to where maybe we could get an advanced copy of their version of the game and do a playthrough of it ahead of release. And I think that would be good. So I wouldn't say anytime soon, but I definitely say look for it down the road. Yes. Joseph, no, shoot us an email. Says he has an error with the podcast. There were a couple of episodes there where Squarespace, which is our where we host our site, and our tracking software not playing well together, and that's a Squarespace issue. So we've been hosting it in a different avenue, so it should work. But if you're having issues, do me a favor, shoot us an email, contact@heavycardboard.com, and we'll see what we can do for you, all right? Eric says, I got to get a couple questions in here from my ride home from work. Any chance there could be a collaborative between Heavy Cardboard and Secret Cabal? I'll never say no. I mean, we're cordial enough to each other, like Jamie and I. I've had zero interaction ever with anyone not named Jamie over at Secret Cabal. And Jamie and I think the last time he and I talked was I sent him a tweet telling him congratulations on becoming full-time when they ran their first Kickstarter. Plus, I don't know that there's a whole lot of overlap between our shows. That said, if you want to reach out to him, I'm willing. I just don't know if there's a whole lot of overlap. But I'm never willing to, or never one to say no to something without exploring it. So yeah, I'm willing. What game would most people be surprised that I like? Eric asks. That's an easy one. That's Millennium Blades, because that is a game that has so much about it that I should not like. Yet here I am, still really a big fan of that. And yes, I know we still got to do a playthrough of it. It's coming. Yeah, Millennium Blades, no doubt. Oh, that's funny. A lot of people have never heard the term misery farm before. And absolutely, I didn't coin that phrase. Feel free to use it. But yeah, that's Agricola, misery farm, because it's subsistence farming in the Middle Ages. Last I checked, that wasn't fun. That wasn't easy. It's not an engine builder in a sense that you're getting ahead. You're trying to survive in Agricola. That's exactly the whole point of the game, which that's awesome. Jesse, trying to goad me, says it's the internet, Edward. Make more blanket statements. That's what it's here for. Yeah, let's not feed that animal. Speaking of which, just to go off on a slight tangent, I was watching The Crown last night. I'm still finishing up the second edition. Chilling in the bathtub, watching The Crown. There's a picture you probably never wanted. Don't worry about it. Moving on. Close it all and jump onto Twitter, and I look at something, and the first thing I saw was the most divisive, horrible thing I think I've ever seen written on my feed on Twitter. And it really struck me. Like, I was just... The whole idea of blanket statements brought this up, that somebody who is taking a stand against some of the wrong that they see in the world, and basically then taking all that wrong and putting out a blanket statement and saying all of you are wrong because of this. And that was the most sad thing I think I've ever seen on Twitter, which says a lot, right? And it got retweeted and liked like hundreds of times. And I was really taken aback by that. How divisive that stuff can be. Blanket statements like that. And they don't serve any purpose, because you're alienating folks that want to support, but you're actually making them part of the problem, or grouping them in as part of the problem. And that was such a disappointing thing to see. And it made me angry, and it made me sad all at the same time. So yeah, I'm not really big on blanket statements, Jesse. Sorry to go off on a tangent on that. I know that's not what you meant, but yeah, that was a super crappy thing, dude, last night. That sucked, dude. Needless to say, some folks got blocked, which that's hard to do, to get me to block you. Anyway. Craft Dragon says there's more than one misery game out there, like Pixie Queen. That's Misery Pixies. I love you. Don't ever change, Craft Dragon. Have I played any of the Mask trilogy board games? Thoughts? Kal-El? I don't know that I know those, which, again, that's kind of hard to do. What are those? Can we get an actual patron-only shot of you in the tub watching The Crown? Nobody wants to see that. No, Jesse, nobody wants to see that. Oh, okay. I was going to make some really bad jokes, and I was just like, no, let's not go there. So, wait, look, see, filter works on occasion. On occasion. Sad Edward in a bathtub is a sad thought. Let's just move on. Okay? Ain't nobody need to dwell on that. Whew, my legs are freezing from the fan down there. Wow, that's cold. But that's a good problem to have. Anyway, look at that. Who has 2 thumbs and is caught up? This guy. It only took me 2 hours and 33 minutes. Oh, Tikal, Mexica, and Java. Nope, haven't played any of them. Would be down for it, though. Meeple overboard. Can we get a happy bathtub story to make us all feel better? I got nothing. Sorry. Okay, I don't know that I've ever heard them referred to as the Mass Trilogy before. Learned something new. All right, cool. No, I haven't tried them yet. Yes, hi. I'm in real time now. Am I in a positive state of mind with how things are going with heavy cardboard? Board Game Trucker asks. Absolutely. So I'll be frank with you guys. Not just Edward, but I'm also frank, apparently. I'm impatient. I'm very proud of what we've built through thousands of hours of hard work and with the support of an amazing community. But I'm also very impatient. There are many nights that I am beating my head up the proverbial wall, trying to figure out how do we reach more people that have no idea that we even exist. And that's really frustrating because I had an interesting conversation with somebody that, in this context, I probably shouldn't name, that it was a very productive and very healthy and very good conversation with somebody that I have known from online interactions in the past, which we've been cordial. Everything's fine. But at MeepleCon, I had a conversation where we have bumped up against, I think is a good way to put it, that there is definite pushback against the show and me in particular because of the way I hustle for the show, I think is a good way to put it. The fact that I market us, the fact that I promote the show, the fact that even though I never started the show with the premise or the idea of ever making any money off of it or ever had an inkling of doing this full time, I bet you if I sat down and talked with Tom Vassell, which actually I did sit down and talk with Tom Vassell at MeepleCon, you'll hear it in the episode tonight, not about this though, that if I ever asked him, did you ever have the idea of starting a network and taking, and launching this brand that is the Dice Tower when you started out, or even early, the first couple of years, I have no doubt he would probably say no, much like us. But once I saw it was possible, then I was like, hey, this is kind of cool. I would like to do this. And so I've worked my ever-living ass off for 3 years, especially the last 2 years, to do so. And that has really rubbed some people the wrong way. Nobody has come right out and told us that, but in interactions and other ways, we have found out that that's the case, which is a huge bummer because I think we're pretty agreeable folks. They just don't like the way we've gone about doing that. So that said, I'm totally impatient, and I realize that the show is still not even 4 years old, and hell, the YouTube channel is what, 14 months old total, and it's an amazing meteoric rise that the show has had. Again, thanks to all of you, viewers, listeners, and the whole 9 yards. But I'm still not satisfied with it. I don't know that satisfied is a state in which I could ever reach with the show. Don't get me wrong, I'm very happy with where things are, but that doesn't necessarily equate to satisfied. Does that make sense? And I'm being honest with y'all, because that's the only way I know how to be. And I think that's part of the appeal of what it is that we do on Heavy Cardboard. So am I in a good state of mind? Yes. I think Gamma was extremely successful. That's still to bear out. It's still just on having networked and talked and done all that stuff. But from a business side, I think things are on the right trajectory for what we want. On a listener and viewer aspect, I think our production quality is quite good. I still want to improve it, as does Amanda. For the podcast, I want to drill down and really focus on doing a better podcast in general. So there's always something to improve on. And I think things are in a real good place. I feel like the quality of the content that we put out is really good. And I think the numbers are bearing that out. I mean, we just hit 6,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel here not too long ago, and now we're up over 6,900, which still is a tiny fraction for some of the other big shows out there, whether it's Dice Tower, Rahdo, et cetera, et cetera. But we're growing. We're getting there because you guys obviously are enjoying it. So that tells me that everything is working well. So am I in a good headspace with it right now, this moment? Yes. Will that change in 4 hours? Probably, because I never am willing to. I'm scared to rest. I'm scared to relax, because I think when you do that, you get comfortable, and when you get comfortable, you stop pushing, and when you stop pushing, you stop making things better, and when you do that, then you start to decline, and that terrifies me. I'm scared of failure. I'm scared of decline, and so that's part of what keeps me driving and pushing, and that's part of what really rubs people. I found within the media world here, some folks that really bugs. Please take this the way it's intended, but that's a you problem. That's not a me problem for those that have a problem with it, because my priority is that we're doing things the right way. Amanda and I are having fun with it. We're enjoying what we're doing. And last and certainly not least, that you guys are enjoying this, that you're finding value in what it is that we do. Whether you're a patron or not, do you find value in what we do? Do you thumb it? Do you subscribe to it? Whether it's the podcast, the YouTube channel, whatever, as long as you guys find value in it, we're going to keep doing it. And that's who we are doing this for. We're doing this for ourselves as well as for y'all watching and listening. We're not doing this for fellow creators out there that may not like us because they don't like the way we go about doing it. I didn't, like I said, I didn't go to school for any of this. I didn't go to school for marketing. I didn't go to school for broadcasting. I didn't go to school for business. I've never been to college. I'm a Marine, so I'm learning a whole lot of this as I go. Have I made missteps? Yup. Have I tried to make right on those? I feel like we have. And will we make more missteps? Yup. Will we try and avoid from? The most important thing is all you can do is learn from your mistakes and try not to make them to begin with, right? So that's where we're at. So that is a really long answer to a very short question. Am I in a positive state of mind with how things are going with Heavy Cardboard? Long answer, yes. Am I satisfied? No. So hopefully that answers your question, and I didn't lose a whole lot of people on that. So there you go. That's the truth. I mean, that's one thing that you guys know you're going to get from us, whether it's in a review, a playthrough, or these Ask the Elephants. I'm going to call a spade a spade. I'm going to be honest with you, because I don't want to have to remember lying. Like, whoa, what did I tell you? It's just not in my nature. If you don't like me because of the way we present ourselves, then so be it. Okay, move on. No big deal. But if you do, awesome. If you like truth, if you like calling a spade, then we're going to have no problems. You know what I mean? When is Heavy Cardboard coming to Canada? Specifically, Western Canada. We're going to be there in August for my buddy's wedding, but that's not Heavy Cardboard. That's Edward and Amanda. When are we coming to Canada? We could hook that up, Scott. Let's see if we can. I mean, there's Chattanooga. I don't know where that is though. I know it's somewhere in Canada. Forgive me. I know it's a big country. I don't know what conventions you got up there, Scott. Shoot us an email. Contact the con organizers. See if they want us to come up there. Something like that. Has Heavy Cardboard ever been to Kansas City? No. Edward's been to Kansas City, but Heavy Cardboard has not been to Kansas City. I imagine that's going to change probably next year for Age of Steam Con, possibly next year. Stuff like that. Have I had any chance to play or read through the Here I Stand 2-player variant? Nope. It's I don't know about the 2-player version of Here I Stand. I can't picture that. I got nothing, Jesse. Sorry. Rob, yes, he is impatient. Can testify. Yup. That's me. It's one of the things about my personality I wish I didn't have. I found that the poker table is the one place I can be patient in my life in general. Weird. I don't know. Oh, the box cover looks like masks. That seems way too obvious, Kabuki Kid. Now it all makes sense. Okay, I see that. I've had to call. Never played it, but I had it. So there was that. Was there anything surprisingly difficult for you when you went full-time? Finding a schedule? And I'm still struggling with shutting it off. Like, I have yet to find the off button for Heavy Cardboard. Which, long-term, probably not the healthiest thing. I realize that. However, I am learning to be able to take days off. And I'm learning to be able to, you know what? Twitter doesn't need my attention tonight and doing stuff like that. So I'm learning it. I'm just not there yet. I think that's the hardest thing. And the other hardest thing, the second hardest thing, I think, is getting past the self-justification for doing enough to justify me doing it full time. Does that make sense? And what I'm here, let me say it a little clearer. Ever since I've been full time, Amanda and I have been trying to do more and more and more content. And because I feel the need to justify being able to do this full time. The biggest feedback we've gotten from our patrons, because those are the people that we asked first, was they're not supporting the show so we can do more. They're supporting the show so that the show can continue. And I hear that and I believe it. It's still a mental aspect of getting past that, because right now Heavy Cardboard is 1.5 people, right? It's me full-time and Amanda working her full job and coming in. She gets about 20 minutes after she gets home of downtime. We eat dinner and then we get to work for the show, whether it's live stream, whether it's editing, whether it's doing graphics, whether it's something, it's all shipping stuff. God knows that logistics. We will offload that for now on. So getting past justifying in my head having to do more. So that's part of why I said we're going to have to scale some things back, because it's just unsustainable for Amanda. It is for me, I feel like, but as it is, I need Amanda. She is 100% my partner in this, and especially when it comes to the podcast, that I can't host the podcast by myself. It just wouldn't work. And she edits all of this stuff. And so we had to scale it back. So we're going to, not massively. You're not going to see us like once in a blue. No. It's going to be still a few live streams a week, et cetera, and the podcast every week with some exceptions. But yeah, it's just finding a sustainable level that is long-term sustainable in the status quo. So that's the hardest thing to learn that I've had, and it's all up here. That's the hardest thing, is getting past this. I'm still learning how to deal with the internet when the internet happens. The day we got banned from Reddit, that was a hard day. I mean, we broke the rules 100%. I'm guilty of that, and I owned it. But some of the vitriol was a bit over the top, I thought. And that was the one day in the history of the show that I really, truly considered, is this something I really want to do? Not because we got banned from Reddit for me, asking people to go post their stuff. It was because of just the ugliness of it and how intense some of that was, which is really funny at how small a scale that is in the big picture. So I don't know if you guys listen to any other podcasts outside of board games or whatnot, but I have a acquaintance level relationship, I think is a fair way to put it, with a top 10 Patreon in the world podcast. And it's one of the top, I think, 100 podcasts in the world that I have talked to him. Oh, hey, welcome, Pete. All right, we got a new YouTube sponsor. That's cool. That's new. Yay. Welcome, Pete. Hi. All right. So here. Not a patron, but cheers. That's pretty cool. All right. So getting back to this, and I don't want to mention it by name, but I have a pretty good relationship with somebody that runs a massive podcast, like dwarfs anything in board games. Like, we're top 100 podcasts in the world, top 10 Patreon in the world, regardless of format. And he and I have talked on the phone previously, and that's a level of internet coming down on you that I can't even begin to fathom. And whoo, yeah, so it puts things in perspective for sure. But yeah, that's the other thing that I'm still learning to deal with, is just learning to be a duck. It's gonna happen. But as anybody who is human, most of y'all can attest to the fact that, what is it? You can have 1,000 people say awesome things and, hey, this is great and how much we appreciate it and this. Then you have that 1 or 2 people that say something and can't help but dwell on those, which isn't healthy, and it's not the best way to go about doing it, but we're human. And I'm learning tricks to be able to trick my mind into getting past that and looking past that and not dwelling on the negative stuff. And it's a process, especially being in the public light on a small degree that we are. So it's learning. It's always a learning process, whether it's learning how to stream better, learning how to talk into a mic better, whether it's Amanda learning how to edit better. These are just different skills that we're having to learn to develop and hone as we go along with all of this. So yeah, it's been a learning curve for sure, but I wouldn't change it. I really enjoy this, and I feel like I found something I'm really good at, and I really kind of want to continue doing this, so I appreciate it. Thanks, y'all. Oh, okay. Kabuki Kid, who actually is a moderator for the Dice Tower, says, yeah, Tom says he had no idea it would ever go full-time. Right. I totally get that. I appreciate the kind words, Rob. Scott says the Borg, assimilate them all. If they like medium-heavy games, we can help them get over the bump. Resistance is futile, right? Philip asks, did Edward mention when the container will be shipped to U.S. backers pre-order? I did not. Part of the reason is that's going to be in the interview with me and Kevin Nesbitt in tonight's episode, as well as I think it's tomorrow's video of it. So, like I said, I'm usually pretty good about answering questions, but since that's coming tonight/tomorrow, listen to one of those or watch one of those. Listen, watch, whatever, depending on your format. And Kevin answers all that in thorough detail. All right, cool. Scott, you said, wow, I'm surprised to hear that. What aspect of that? I'm curious. Oh, you wound me, Dustin. He says, scared of failure and decline, and you're a Reds fan? That was awesome. Dirty, but awesome. Well played, sir. Well played. Coming to Origins? Yep, Joseph, I will be there. I will. Bring coffee and tea. If you see me, coffee, please, because that's going to be the end of a very long trip, and that will be much appreciated. We're going to do some sort of meetup. I'm not exactly 100% sure on what we're doing, but that's some folks behind the scenes are working on that, and we're going to have a little small gathering for a meetup. That should be a good time. Kabuki Kid, odd that another creator would care. Maybe they think you're stepping on their toes. I don't know. I think we've done a pretty good job of, staying in our lanes, so to speak, and not really. I think we support a lot of folks, and we don't really disparage anybody. Do your thing. You do it how you want to do it, and we'll do it how we want to. But yeah, it's been kind of ugly behind the scenes on some of that stuff. But you know what? Let's move on. I want to stay on the positive side of things. I want to look at things from a positive light. And that's something that Kleiker actually is helping me with, as far as like when he was with me at Gamma. And we talked about that, just how to present yourself and just a better mindset. And actually some really good friends. So Bev and Brad and some other folks have really turned me on to, like, Jocko, if you guys have ever listened to any of his motivational stuff, or just, it's just a mindset, right? And just, you know what? If they want to spend their time being negative, I can't control them. I can only control what we do. Yep, we're still here, Steph. I can't quit, y'all. But it's coming to an end here soon, I promise. JU says, I recently found your channel. I'm really enjoying the content. I like the way you cover a lot of heavy board games, and especially 18XX. Other channels just don't cover. Greetings from Germany. Awesome. Mission accomplished then, JU. Very cool. Head Nougats and Medicine Hat. You know how much that helps me, Rob? Nope. My geography of Canada, not good. I know where British Columbia is. I know where Saskatchewan is. I know where PEI is, and I know thereabouts, but I couldn't tell you specific cities. I've heard of Medicine Hat. I know they take their hockey seriously there, but that's all I got. All right. Let's see. What board game gives you the closest feeling of poker? Board Game Trucker asks. By the way, did I answer? That was probably more of an answer than you actually were going for, so sorry about that. No, but yeah, just try and be thorough. Again, it feels like a non-answer. It feels like a bit of a cop-out, but I would argue a lot of the games do, especially on the heavier end of things. So I recently, and by recently I mean yesterday, Tuesday, whatever, was interviewed for something that's going to get published later on in April. And the interviewer actually asked me about the similarities between poker and board games. And I was like, well, that's really weird that you asked that, because I kind of got into board games as a substitute for poker because, and I've talked about this in the past, that poker is a competition and decision making. Yes, bad luck happens. I got it all in 3 times as 70+ favorite, 70+% favorite, and lost every time. Is that supposed to happen? Nope. Can it happen? Yup. Long term, will that continue to happen? Nope. The math plays out. So with it being a competition and decision making, whoever makes the better decisions long term will end up winning the game being poker. Obviously, that's over millions of hands, hundreds and thousands of hours, right? Board games, not that scale. Obviously, they're a lot more finite, whether it's a 2-hour game, hour-and-a-half game, 4-hour game, whatever. But a lot of the games that we enjoy playing have very little randomness. They do have some, and very little luck in them. But again, a lot of them do have some. So there is that aspect of, you know what, you can make all the right decisions and still lose. It happens, but rarer than not. So therefore, it's a competition in decision making. You and me are playing a game. Whoever makes the better whoever makes better decisions over the course of a game is going to win the game. So from that standpoint, I would say that a lot of these games give me a similar feel to poker because it's that competition of decision making. However, like direct correlation, getting it all in with $1,800 behind, there's not a board game out there that's going to replicate that feeling. Getting it in ahead, feeling good, and then either feeling great because you won, or I should say feeling great because you made the right decisions. I don't know that there's a direct correlation there in the board game world, but they do scratch a similar itch. So that's probably the best answer that I could give you, Trucker. And although we could do it, I guess, from a mechanical standpoint and like playing the player, stuff like that. So that would be, you know, some like Neue Heimat type as far as, you know, bluffing and playing the player type stuff. I suppose we could go about it that way. I was looking more big picture. Sorry. Cody asks, am I interested in trying out CO2 Second Chance? Yep. Vital gave us his prototype, and it's actually down in the basement. Yeah, it is. I was making sure I wasn't lying and it wasn't sitting over here. It's down in the basement. Haven't gotten to it yet, but yes, looking forward to trying that. Probably on the competitive aspect, not the co-op. But that said, looking forward to trying it. What are your plans for the future of heavy cardboard? Make it to the end of the day, Eric. I mean, we're finishing out the studio now that we hit the latest milestone over on our on pledgehc.com. As far as futures for heavy cardboard, I would have to say that before anything major were to change or to take place, the next step would have to be to get Amanda full time, because that's the limiting factor at this point. So ideally, that happens by the end of the year. Maybe it doesn't. We don't know. But that's entirely up to just see how things go. So that would be the short to midterm goal, because nothing can really proceed past that because it's just not feasible. We can't do more. And I just covered all that. And so it's a matter of the only way we could do more as far as quantity is getting Amanda full time. And then we're talking about being able to bring studio aspects of our reviews. So right now our reviews are strictly on the podcast, right? Yes, we upload them to YouTube, but there's no it's just, you know, a static screen, and it's the podcast just hosted on YouTube. With more time and everything, we can do more studio reviews. Long form reviews like what we would do. We want to be able to delve a little bit into strategy. We want to be able to talk progressions of games, like you play Ticket to Ride. There is a path to 18xx. How do you get from here to there? Stuff like that. So we definitely have some ideas on other content that we can do in addition to what it is that we do. But as it is right now, none of that's going to happen. So the plan for the foreseeable future is to host the podcast every week, do one review plus possibly a couple of trailers, this and that. Basically one episode a week, and then a couple, 2-3 live streams every week, except when we're on the road. That's pretty much the plan for the show for the foreseeable future until Amanda's full time. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Eric. But yeah, once that happens, then we're not limited to time, which that's the limiting factor. And I guarantee you, if you ask any other content creator, which I hate that term, if you ask any other media here in board games, or actually any other media probably that covers any aspect of anything out there, the limiting factor is time, and money buys time. because if Amanda's full-time, then that means we have enough to be able to cover the show as well as our income to be able to survive and do the show full-time, which then buys us time. So that's just the truth. That's where it is. Meeple Overboard says, thanks for the insight on the workload, Edward. Scaling back is a hard decision, but we like you the way you are, not because you need to do more and more. And that's the hard thing to understand. It's easy to hear it. It's a whole nother thing to let that sink in. And yeah, so I appreciate that. Thank you. As far as the Reddit stuff, you guys can go read about it. I don't want to delve into it. Just basically, in a nutshell, was on Slack, on our patron Slack. I asked people, even though I was arguably the most active media person over on Reddit, I still wasn't allowed to post our stuff. And so I asked other people to post it. And hey, if y'all would, go vote it up. And that's a huge no-no on Reddit. And so I got banned for that. So there you go. That's what it was. I haven't listened to the Jocko podcast yet. I've listened to snippets here and there on YouTube and stuff. But have not listened to the podcast. Although I know a lot of really good friends that do. And I don't listen to a lot by way of podcast right now. But again, trying to find that balance, right? So I'm getting there. I'm getting back into it. Alberta, between British Columbia and Saskatchewan, Medicine Hat's at the bottom eastern corner, southeast of Calgary. All right, cool. Thank you, Terrence. All right. So now we have a little Canadian geography as well. So there we go. So that would be Western Canada, right? That could happen next year. Straight north. So basically just get on 25 and go. All right, cool. All right, good to know, Jeff. Do we or anyone in our play group have any interest in designing games? Oh, sure. Ash, Tony. I'm sure there are others, but those are the two that come to mind that I know have actively started designs on stuff. Tony has designed a Age of Steam map, Cuba, and he's messed around with Indonesium, which is a variant or kind of a take on Indonesia in space, but with moving maps instead of it being a static map. I helped him develop it a little bit, and then we gave it to Jeroen and Joris, and haven't heard anything. So I'll take that as their thoughts on it. But Ash has messed around with some stuff, and I know there are some other people in the group that have aspirations, I think would be a good way to put it. Amanda and I don't suffer from that at all, not even a tiny bit. I think I would be a decent developer, but zero chance at designing. But just like any skill, developing board games is very much a skill, and I think those that do it for a living and do it well, folks like Paul Linkow over at Stronghold and does a lot of VTOL's games, I think he does amazing work, and there are a lot of others, and that's kind of the hidden diamond in the rough that goes from designing a board game to getting it published is that development work. And I think there are some really amazing developers out there. And I'm hoping to be able to sit down and interview some of them, because I think a lot of people don't realize what it is, A, that they exist, and B, that this is a really, really big deal what they do. So I think that'd be really cool. That's really funny, Rob. He's giving me geography lessons, and him being an Aussie talking about North America. That's really funny. Yeah, and Kabuki Kid says, I'm in the camp of having no interest in designing games, just playing them. Designing doesn't sound fun. I'm constantly amazed at how people come up with the stuff they come up with. It blows me away. I'm glad that they do, though. And so Bruno says, yeah, playtesting's awesome. He loves him some prototypes. And we don't get to do that too often because we just don't have time. But at LyriaCon, that was a cool little experience. Not something I would want to do all the time, but once in a while, I think that was a lot of fun to be able to give feedback and have that feedback immediately implemented. In some cases, not all, obviously, but that was really cool. That was a cool experience. And I'm excited to see these games where we saw them in prototype form, seeing them come to fruition and being published, and seeing what else changed. I think that'll be cool to be able to talk about that. Plus, it gives more insight to y'all for us to be able to talk about that in our reviews and just kind of overviews of the game. And wow, this has changed, and our thoughts on stuff like that. I think that's a benefit to y'all and can help shine some light on the design process, which I think that's more information is always good, I think, in that respect. That should be cool. Marco, no, I have fallen behind on all our YouTube comments the last couple of weeks because I've been on the road, but hoping to get back to them early next week. So I will try and get to that, I promise. Appreciate that, Jesse. He says, I could really feel the what else can we do for you attitude coming through in the survey. Really just wanted to put it in, please do less. Just enjoy it and keep doing what you're doing. And that seems to be the universal sentiment. So I really appreciate it. And it's starting to sink in. Eric says, I love the idea of a progression track to heavier games. It's something that's missing from board game media. Hope to see that from Heavy Cardboard in the future. It's something we absolutely want to do, so we're excited about the idea too, Eric. Renji says, is it a good idea to say hi to Amanda when she's getting something to eat or drink in the Galleria at Essen? Because I didn't do it last year and I was standing next to her. Absolutely. Yeah, let's be clear. If y'all see us at a convention, we're there primarily to meet y'all and to interact with y'all. And this gives us, and that's one of the highlights for us too. So absolutely. Now, if I have my mouth full, I might be, like, hey, let me swallow. But absolutely, stop. We may ask you to walk with us. We may, whatever. But absolutely, stop and say hi. We want to meet y'all. That's awesome. That's one of the benefits. That's one of the perks of doing this. We see. So yeah, please, absolutely, holler at us. And holler in colloquial terms in the U.S. is just say hi. JU asked, do I prefer the 1829, i.e. more the operations side, or the 1830 financial side of 18XX? And I straddle the line pretty well. I like aspects of both, and I like games and dislike games in both of those. So I would say I enjoy both. And we actually kind of talk about that quite a bit in our 18XX primer episode on the podcast, if you want to check that out. That's cool. Alexander says, in designing, what frightens me is the amount of test and development. Next month, I'll have to try a first version of rules for an Age of Steam map. I think that's exciting, and don't be intimidated by that. Learn from it and welcome, honest feedback, because honest feedback is what's going to make your game better. So, I mean, as long as the feedback is respectful and not like, oh, this is junk, this is stupid, this is broken, this is terrible. No, just be like, yeah, I didn't really like this part of the game, and here's why. That's positive feedback. Even though it's negative, that's positive feedback on why they didn't like it, and that helps you make the game better. Or at least, helps you give a data point in which other people might agree or might disagree. So I think that's only a good thing. All right, Rand, take care. I'm about to call it a night as well, or a day, as it were. Do you... Is Boja says, I still want to try an 18XX game, but I didn't like tramways. Nah, I don't think they're necessarily anything alike. I feel like tramways is a closer variant to Age of Steam, which Age of Steam is really nothing like an 18XX. So should you try it? I would recommend listening to our primer episode and seeing if that, I mean, I think we did a pretty good job covering most of the bases on, if you like these things, you'll probably like it. If you don't, you probably won't. And I think that will go a long way to helping folks. So check that out. Ufe, is that how you say that? It says we could wear heavy cardboard pins at Essen to salute your fantastic job to promote heavy board games. Nah, I mean, I'm all for it. Don't get me wrong, but you know what? Say hi and just pay it forward. Make playing these games pleasant for those that you play with. I think that would be a good start. That would be really good. Not saying you don't. I'm saying just in general. I think making these approachable and extending, being welcoming to those that are interested and making it a good environment in which to play in. I think that's all we can all do as a group, collectively. All right. So, yes, Brant, I will be going to Gen Con. Probably not Amanda. Again, time off of work, unfortunately. Hi, Phryne. Welcome. Any words of wisdom to leave us on? A la Tony from Secret Cabal and recently Jen from Rado. I don't have any context in which those words of wisdom. Play what you dig and be pleasant. To be around and be pleasant to one another. Be pleasant at the table and away from the table. How's that? That's pretty simple. Cool. All right. Good. All right. I'm going to go get some lunch. All right. I'll talk to you all later. Thanks, everybody. Seriously, thanks, everybody that joined me and hung out for an insane long amount of time. That was, what, almost 200 minutes? Whew. So that was fun. Hopefully you all got something out of it, and I'll probably be back sometime next month with another one of these. In the meantime, Bora Bora tomorrow night. Other than that, yeah, if you dig this, you want to support the show, pledgehc.com. Don't forget, you can go there. Also, like and subscribe. It helps the show. Plus, subscribe. You get notified of this stuff, so if you miss the weekly look-aheads and all that stuff. But right there, it's coming where it's this way, right there. pledgehc.com. That's how you can support the show. Cool? All right. Y'all have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, whatever. And, yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow night on the live stream. Take care, everybody. Bye.